Sunday morning. Today, just going to watch the news. There's talks of arrest for the former President Obama being arrested for his implication in trying to pretty much assassinate the name of President Trump. I don't really know what's going on, so we're going to watch this together. Happy Sunday. May God bless all of you, and thank you guys for watching with me, okay? All right, let's get it.
Community decision protects Obama from prosecution?
Look, I can speak to the president's feelings on this matter. He spoke to all of you yesterday in the Oval Office, but I also spoke to him about this morning. And he wants to see all those who perpetuated this fraud against our country, who betrayed our country and the Constitution, to be thoroughly investigated and held accountable. And it's been 10 years of this, and I would just add, based on everything the director has said and declassified, all of you in this room should go through it and take a look at this report and review the intelligence, because unfortunately that hasn't happened. And many of the people who perpetuated this hoax, Clapper, Andy McCabe, James Comey, and many others, have been hired by major networks in this room to go on television and continue to spew these lies, knowing that they are lies. And if you all recall, just flashback to 2016 and the years after, the entire Trump 1 presidency was embroiled in this scandal that was perpetuated by the Democrat Party. And you had major Democrat Party officials in this city, namely Adam Schiff, Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren, who went on television and told the American people, Donald Trump is an asset of Russia. It was a lie, they always knew it. Hillary Clinton herself said that President Trump would be a puppet for Putin. Senator Tim Kaine at the time called President Trump Vladimir Putin's defense lawyer. Adam Schiff stated, and one of the worst things a lawmaker can do is to tell the American people, I know something you don't know, it's just classified and I can't tell you. And that's what he said. I can tell you that the case is more than that. I can't go into the particulars, but there's more than circumstantial evidence now. And not enough people in this room, not enough journalists in this country pushed Adam Schiff to say, what are you talking about? What evidence do you have? Everybody just ran with the lies, and it led to impeachments. It led to the division of our country. Unfortunately, so many Americans, from listening to outlets in this room, believed in these lies. And it's a complete scam, and it's a scandal, and the president wants to see accountability for that. Phil.
Question for Director Gabbard. A spokesperson for former President Obama.
They should be liable, plain and simple.
Quote, nothing in the document.
That's like calling somebody a pedophile and having no proof of it, and then scandaling their name, and then don't get reprimanded for it.
To critics like former President Obama and also.
And that's why the Democrats lost the election. They told lies. The American people believed it at first, and then the people start to think that, okay, these are lies.
I think it's a disservice to the American people that former President Obama's office and others who are criticizing the transparency that is being delivered by releasing these documents. They are doing a disservice to the American people and trying to deflect away from their culpability in what is a historic scandal and negative action towards the American people and our democratic republic. The answer to that statement can very clearly be found throughout all of the documents that we have released. Again, showing that Russia has took action to try to sow discord in the election, but showed no preference for or against any singular candidate.
You've long been an opponent of weaponization in government. How do you respond to criticism that referring to Obama administration officials and even potentially the former president is just more weaponization, and this is a potential race to the bottom?
I think that's a very disrespectful attack on the American people who deserve the truth. They deserve to have faith and trust in the integrity of our democratic republic, which has been undermined by President Obama through his direction of this manufactured fake intelligence document, knowing that it was filled with lies and knowing that it would and could then be used for all of the actions that came after.
And I would just add, there needs to be accountability for that weaponization, Phil, that we've seen. And no one has been a victim of the weaponized government more than President Trump, not just because of this political scandal. You all recall his house was raided. So I think, it's very disingenuous for people to say, how dare they speak of former President Obama about this? based on evidence and based on intelligence when the former president of the United States, Donald Trump's home was raided, when he was forced to sit in a Manhattan courtroom and many other courtrooms across the country for crimes he never committed, when he was impeached and indicted, and the entire country witnessed that. That's the weaponization of justice. Now the president is back because the American people see the truth. Nearly 80 million Americans re-elected him back to this office, and he believes that we need to have justice and accountability, and I think the nearly 80 million Americans who re-elected him agree with that. Caitlin.
Thank you, Carolyn. Two questions for Director Gabbard, just on this. Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Community, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion, but they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. One, are you saying that he's wrong in that statement that he made then? And secondly, what would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
Well, first I want to correct something that you stated, which was citing the Senate Intelligence Committee's report as being one and the same. I think you said the intelligence community. The Senate Intelligence Committee has a very different function than the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The evidence and the intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Caroline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this, that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians, all of these lies that were never true. And he also said at that time, we discovered deeply troubling actions taken by the FBI under Comey, particularly their acceptance and willingness to rely on the Steele dossier without verifying its methodology or sourcing. The Steele dossier that many outlets in this room ran as the gospel truth, and it was cooked up and paid for by the Clinton campaign. As for your second question, Caitlin, I think, who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to. And that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president made. Does anyone else have questions for Director Gabbard? And then we'll turn it over to a couple other questions. Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Director Gabbard, two follow-ups on questions that have been asked. You mentioned the previous DNIs during the president's first term. One of them reports to you right now, if I'm not mistaken, John Ratcliffe. So have you not spoken to him about why this information was not declassified during the first term?
He was in that position for a very short period of time. The work that began back then, we have picked up and absolutely completed. We are continuing to investigate this. Additional whistleblowers are now coming forward because they see an opportunity for the truth to come to light. And as Caroline said, for real accountability to be brought forward. The accountability is the essential part of this. We can show the truth, reveal the truth. The accountability needs to occur to be able to start to restore that trust and in the integrity of our democracy.
And then just quickly, I know you said you would leave the charging to DOJ, but the statute of limitations on conspiracy is 5 years. So what else could they possibly pursue besides treason?
I think that's a great question for Attorney General Pam Bondi. We're providing all of the evidence, all of the intelligence that we have, both redacted and unredacted versions, referring it to the Department of Justice and the FBI.
We'll take one more. Charlie, go ahead.
How credible was the information about Hillary Clinton's power? The report said that it was from the source from the DNC. Have you seen that information, or do you think that maybe Russia was overemphasizing what they had.
All I have seen is what the Intelligence Committee have reported through their investigation. I think that the underlying point there is that we understand from intelligence what Russia said that they had. And the important point here is that if they were trying to influence the election, as President Obama and James Clapper and John Brennan, everybody said they were doing in order to support Donald Trump's election, they would have released the most damning of that information, some of which I detailed here. You'll find the rest in the report, prior to the election to help Donald Trump win. They specifically withheld what they had on her, the most damning information, because they thought that she would win the election. They had plans to release it just prior to her inauguration to, again, sow discord and chaos in America.
And if I may, on Jeffrey Epstein, can you rule out that he was connected in some way to any kind of intelligence, either foreign or domestic?
I haven't seen any evidence or information that reflects that. If anything comes before me that changes that in any way, support the president's statement loud and clear. If any credible evidence comes forward, he wants the American people to see it.
Great. Director Gabbard, we thank you for your
Thank you.
time today. I know you're a busy woman,
Thank
so
you.
we'll let you get out of here, but thank you so much. Okay, I know there's many issues going on today across the world and here at home. If you have any other further questions, I'm happy to take them. Ed, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. So the Japan trade deal, is that Japan trade deal the start of this number of trade deals that the Treasury Secretary says we're going to see by August 1st?
I think it is. I mean, as you said, we had Japan yesterday. We also had Indonesia, and we had the Philippines as well. The president announcing all three. He came in as the closer in all three of those. I've said many times from this podium that the president's trade team has been in active talks and discussions with many countries around the world, and you've all been anxiously awaiting what those countries were. Now you know three of them, and there's many, many more to go. We have now sent 25 letters to countries around the world. But just to reiterate this Japan deal, for those at home who may have missed it, Japan will now pay a 15% tariff versus the reciprocal rate of 24% that what they initially had. Auto and auto parts tariffs have been reduced to 15%, but the centerpiece of this deal now is the president got Japan to commit to $550 billion in investments to revitalize American industries. And these funds will be spent at President Trump's discretion and direction into key industries such as energy, semiconductors, critical minerals, pharmaceuticals, and shipbuilding. And the U.S. will retain 90% of the profits from any investments made by this $550 billion fund. This was originally a $400 billion investment that President Trump then negotiated to an increase of $150 billion, making it a $550 billion deal for the American people. And I just want to emphasize, Ed, I see you have a follow-up, but it's very important. Japan has agreed to open their markets to many very key sectors in American-made products that have really faced very strict tariff and for precious souls. We are so sorry for the grief and the pain you have experienced at the hands of such a vicious and evil killer. Our nation grieves with you, and we will never forget the precious souls who were lost in this horrific act of evil. If it were up to the president, he would have forced this monster to publicly explain why he chose to steal these innocent souls. May God bless and watch over everyone affected by this unimaginable tragedy, especially the parents who lost their children. Let me begin with a few scheduling items off the top. Later this afternoon, President Trump will deliver the keynote address at the Winning the AI Race Summit here in Washington, D.C. President Trump believes it is non-negotiable that the United States wins the AI race, which is why today, President Trump will announce a bold and comprehensive AI action plan to sustain and enhance America's global AI dominance. Under President Trump's leadership, our country will lead the world in AI to secure a brighter future for all Americans, massively grow our economy, and protect our national security. The president will also sign 3 executive orders at the event this afternoon. On Friday morning, President Trump will travel to Scotland for a working visit that will include a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Starmer to refine the historic U.S.-UK trade deal. On the topic of trade, yesterday, President Trump accomplished something no other president has ever achieved. The president secured and announced 3 major trade deals with the Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan all in one day. President Trump is finally putting a stop to our country getting ripped off. As a result of the president's successful negotiating tactics, many foreign markets are now being opened to American industries for the very first time, and harmful trade barriers are being broken down. Thanks to President Trump, these countries around the world are agreeing to open their markets to American-made products and goods for the first time, which will lead to a boom in sales and profits for American businesses right here at home. As President Trump said, he will only lower tariff rates if a country agrees to open their market to American-made products. If not, they will continue to face tariffs and pay a steep price to do business in the United States of America, which remains the best market on the face of the planet. Also this week, the president officially marked 6 months here at the White House. He made big promises to the American people on the campaign trail last year, and he has unquestionably delivered on those promises in record time. The president has defeated the Biden inflation crisis to make America affordable again. Core inflation is currently at its lowest level in 4 years, and prices for everyday goods are falling. The president's pro-growth policies have fueled massive job growth across our country. Since the president has taken office, our economy has added nearly 700,000 new jobs, with native-born American workers accounting for all job gains. The president has put the economic needs of families and of workers first. He signed the largest tax cuts for the middle class in American history, including no tax on tips, overtime, and Social Security. We have also seen the president unquestionably deliver on his promise to secure our southern border. He has ended Biden's illegal alien invasion, and for 2 months in a row, 0 illegal aliens were released into our country. The president has also, as you all know, initiated the largest mass deportation campaign in American history. The president has also restored law and order to make America safe again, another campaign promise he vowed to the American public. The United States of America is currently on track for its lowest murder rate on record, following this shift from the last administration to the Trump administration. The president has also ended Joe Biden's reckless war on American energy. U.S. oil and natural gas production are now surging, and summer gas prices reached their lowest level since 2021. The president has also rebuilt our military, another campaign promise. He just signed the largest military investment in decades to modernize our armed forces with cutting-edge technology to replenish our stockpiles and provide American troops with the best equipment in the world. The U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Space Force have all reached their recruitment goals months in advance. The president has restored America's standing on the world stage, brought back peace through strength, and brokered numerous peace agreements to end wars. Again, all of this in just 6 months. He obliterated Iran's nuclear program to end the war between Israel and Iran, got NATO members to raise their defense spending to 5% of GDP, and secured a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, as well as brokering a historic agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The president has already received 3 different Nobel Peace Prize nominations for his peacemaking efforts. Again, all of this progress, all of these accomplishments have occurred in just 6 months. We are truly just getting started, and we look forward to working with all of you for the next 3.5 years. On another matter, over the past few days, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has unveiled shocking new evidence that former President Barack Obama and top aides in the Obama administration conspired to subvert President Trump's 2016 election victory and undermine the democratic will of the American people.
Do this 7 minutes a day until the end of October. We start on Monday, October 6th. In a week, you'll feel better. In 2 weeks, you'll look better. In a month, your wife won't believe your results. Here's a personalized plan of short chair workouts tailored for beginners over 50. It's just 7 minutes a day, beginner friendly, and requires no equipment. You can work out anytime, anywhere. Just QR code and follow along.
If you're thinking of selling your home soon, you don't want to miss out on this. Not only will our team buy your house fast, we can also
while publicly pretending to engage in a peaceful transfer of power. In private, former President Obama went to great and nefarious lengths to try to sow discord among the public and sabotage his successor, President Trump. The new evidence released by the Director of National Intelligence, who is here with me today, confirms that the Obama administration manufactured politicized intelligence, which was later used as the justification for baseless smears against President Trump in an effort to try to delegitimize his victory before he even took the oath of office. The truth is that President Trump never had anything to do with Russia, and the Russia collusion hoax was a massive fraud perpetuated on the American people from the very beginning. And the worst part of this is Obama knew that truth, and so did all of the other corrupt officials involved in this scam, including former CIA Director John Brennan, former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, former FBI Director James Comey, former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, and many others. Director of National Intelligence Gabbard's report further confirms what we already knew. There was no collusion, no corruption, except on the part of Barack Obama and the weaponized intelligence agencies at the time. The Russia hoax was a blatant lie, all ginned up by Democrat political operatives that were signed off on by then President Obama and leaked to the news media to launch a years-long witch hunt against President Trump and his first administration. Allies of the president, including his own son, Donald Trump Jr., were disgustingly smeared as Russian assets, and some even had their lives destroyed because of this vicious lie. The president's first 2 years in office had this fake distraction hanging over it, and endless resources, time, and political capital were spent having to debunk these lies from the highest levels of our government. Now, nearly 10 years later, thanks to the declassification of documents by Director Gabbard, the truth has finally come to light. And this truth vindicates President Trump, his family, and his many allies and associates who were smeared with defamatory lies. President Trump was right from the beginning about all of this, and we are grateful that justice can be served. Now, we have even more damning evidence implicating those who tried to sabotage a duly elected president and did grave material harm to our republic. Thanks to additional important work done by CIA Director Ratcliffe, Committee Chairman Rick Crawford over the past few months, a newly declassified 2020 report prepared by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, which DNI Director Gabbard has declassified, found that the intel community did not have any direct information that Russian President Vladimir Putin wanted to help elect President Trump in 2016, and in fact, Russia was actively preparing for a Hillary Clinton victory. But at the unusual direction of Barack Obama at the time, the intel community published implausible intelligence suggesting otherwise. Why? To sabotage the incoming president. This is truly one of the greatest political scandals in American history. And reporters at legacy outlets, some of which are sitting in this room today, like the New York Times and the Washington Post, were ridiculously awarded Pulitzer Prizes for their perpetuation of this hoax. It's well past time for those awards to be stripped from the journalists who received them. It is not journalism to propagate political disinformation in service of the Democrat Party and those in the intelligence community who hand over out of context and fake intelligence to push a false political narrative. I will now pass it over to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, to speak more about all of this, and then we will open it up for questions afterwards. Tulsi, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. At President Trump's direction and with the support and coordination of the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford, today we've released a declassified Oversight Majority Staff report that was produced in September of 2020. The stunning revelations that we are releasing today should be of concern to every American. This is not about Democrats or Republicans. This has to do with the integrity of our democratic republic and American voters having faith that the votes cast will count. There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't. The report that we released today shows in great detail how they carried this out. They manufactured findings from shoddy sources. They suppressed evidence and credible intelligence that disproved their false claims. They disobeyed traditional tradecraft intelligence community standards and withheld the truth from the American people. In doing so, they conspired to subvert the will of the American people who elected Donald Trump in that election in November of 2016. They worked with their partners in the media to promote this lie, ultimately to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump and launching what would be a years-long coup against him and his administration. We're here today because the American people deserve the truth, they deserve accountability, and they deserve justice. The records that we released on Friday that were ODNI records, Senator Chuck Grassley's release on Monday of what is known as the Clinton Annex, which was an appendix to the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General's 2018 report, as well as the House Intelligence Committee's majority oversight report that we're releasing today, all come back to and confirm the same report. There was a gross politicization and manipulation of intelligence by the Obama administration intended to delegitimize President Trump even before he was inaugurated, ultimately usurping the will of the American people. I'm going to go over the key findings from the House Intelligence Report, which investigated the claims that were made by an intelligence community assessment ordered by President Obama and published in January of 2017. First, Putin's principal interests relating to the 2016 election were to undermine faith in the US democratic process, not show any preference of a certain candidate. In fact, this report shows Putin held back from leaking compromising material on Hillary Clinton prior to the election, instead planning to release it after the election to weaken what Moscow viewed as an inevitable Clinton presidency. In the January 2017 intelligence community assessment that President Obama ordered, John Brennan, who was CIA director at the time, and the intelligence community intentionally suppressed intelligence that showed Putin was saving the most damaging material that he had in his possession about Hillary Clinton until after her potential and likely victory. The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named US religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
How do we pay for all this?
It's an Aldi thing.
Oh, yeah.
Good news, the market's swinging back to buyers, which means that dream home won't be there forever. Don't let someone else beat you to it. Start your search today. Make it real with Realtor.com.
I'm a little nervous because I have no clue what's about to happen, but this could either be a total disaster or the world's greatest magic trick. Okay, so this little device right here is called the Pet Gentle, and people say it's like having a remote control for your dog. Let's see what happens. They're all going wild right now, and it's total chaos. And if this actually works, it'll be a miracle. I can't believe it!
Wow, did you see
Oh
that?
my god, that was incredible!
Okay, that was actually kind of cool. I wasn't expecting that. Apparently it uses some kind of ultrasonic sound that only dogs can hear, but we can't.
I think that's why it kind of feels like nothing's happening, but for dogs, it's like flipping a switch. Okay, so now for the real test. The reason I actually got the Pet Gentle wasn't for the dog park, it's this girl right here. This is what she does every time someone comes over. I've seriously tried everything. Trainers, treats, even shock collars. Nothing sticks.
And my mom, she's moving in soon, but she's terrified of my dog. So if I can't get things under control, I don't know if I'll be able to keep her. All right, so my mom's here and Bella has been barking for 10 minutes straight. So let's see if the Pet Gentle works on her. That was amazing. I've never been able to quiet Bella down like that. This actually gives me a lot of hope. It's been 30 days since I started using the Pet Gentle, and honestly, Bella's like a whole new dog. At first, I used it religiously every time she acted up. But after a couple weeks, she just started listening on her own. And she used to be the worst leash puller, but look, she walks right by my side now. My arm doesn't feel like it's being ripped off anymore. I can finally have people over without her barking like crazy or jumping all over them. The best part is my mom's not scared of her anymore. They're actually best buds now. It makes me so happy. If you're struggling like I was, this thing actually works. It's super easy, totally safe, and you don't need any training experience. And honestly, if it doesn't work for your dog, they've got a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's really nothing to lose. I also found a promo link that gets you 60% off. I have no idea how long it'll be up, so click the link below before it disappears.
Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess quote-unquote Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous. The intelligence community assessment omitted reliably sourced information, such as how some Russian intelligence officials were quote-unquote planning for candidate Hillary Clinton's victory, while others assessed neither Trump nor Clinton would respect Russia's interests. As was reflected in the ODNI documents that we released on Friday, multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the US election. On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance. If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump. On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president, President Obama. It directed senior intelligence community agency heads and created an intelligence community assessment limited to just 5 analysts, using one principal drafter. This is not something that occurs in the normal path of producing an intelligence community assessment that reflects the views across the intelligence community. The production of this intelligence community assessment was subject to unusual directives directly from the president and senior political appointees, especially the former director of the CIA, John Brennan. The House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report also shows how later that same day, on December 9th, Brennan ordered the publication of quote-unquote substandard reporting on Russian activities, which had previously been withheld from publication of prior assessments because the information was judged, quote, to have not met longstanding publication standards. Some of the information later used in the Obama-ordered assessment over the objections of veteran CIA officers was, quote unquote, unclear or from unknown sources. The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment, stating, quote, we don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected. Yet, the Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, we assess Putin and the Russian government aspire to help President-elect Trump's election chances when possible by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him, end of quote. The CIA and FBI, then led by John Brennan and James Comey, expressed high confidence in this judgment, while the NSA expressed moderate confidence. Yet, as the report we released today shows, the ICA, the Intelligence Community Assessment, did not cite any report where Putin indicated helping Trump win was an objective. The opposite is true. With regards to the Steele dossier, we now know that one of the source documents that the Obama administration used in the creation of this intelligence assessment in January of 2017 was none other than the discredited, unverified Steele dossier. The House Intel report states, quote, contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex. John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway. CIA officer told the House Intelligence Committee staff as they investigated this, quote, the director of the CIA, John Brennan, refused to remove it, and when confronted with the dossier's many flaws, responded, quote, yes, but doesn't it ring true? Even the bipartisan Senate Select Committee on Intelligence report published in 2020 criticized the FBI's handling of the Steele dossier, noting its completely unverified nature and purposeful sidestepping of intelligence community procedures in its use. Now, President Obama, Hillary Clinton, John Brennan, James Clapper, James Comey, and others, including their mouthpieces in the media, knowingly lied as they repeated the contrived narrative that was created in this January 2017 intelligence community assessment with high confidence as though it were fact. John Brennan, as CIA director, stated in a memo to his agency staff in December of 2016, saying, quote, there is strong consensus among us on the scope, nature, and intent of Russian interference in our presidential election. This was reported by NBC News, confirming that Brennan, along with James Clapper and James Comey, agreed with the CIA's assessment that Russia intervened to help Trump win the presidency. As Obama's Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper was tasked with overseeing the creation of this assessment in January of 2017 by President Obama, and he expressed confidence in its findings. In a 2018 interview with the Harvard Gazette, he talked about how he provided Trump with the same classified assessment that President Obama received, which included the high confidence judgment that Putin directly ordered the hacking and election interference. Clapper then went on to add, I think they, the Russians, actually influenced the outcome. This is a brief summary of the details that you'll find within the House Majority Staff's report in their investigation into the Obama-directed January 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment. That leads us to the very same conclusion that we announced in the release of our documents on Friday. The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election, and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming President of the United States, Donald Trump. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tulsi. And we do want to take questions on this topic while the director has time for this topic. She will leave. I'm happy to take questions on other matters after that. But if anyone has questions for Director Gabbard, you're welcome to ask them. We'll start with our new media seat as always. Emily, go ahead.
Thank you. And Director Gabbard, this one is for you. Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former
The
President
evidence,
Obama?
correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Ed, go ahead.
Director Gabbard, thank you. So just two questions to begin on that. The president yesterday, you've inferred that the former president helped lead a coup. Based on what you now see, do you believe President Obama is guilty of treason?
I'm leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I'm not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people, our republic, and an attempt to undermine President Trump's administration.
The Senate Intelligence Committee spent several years looking into this and unanimously agreed in a bipartisan fashion, Secretary of State Rubio was a member of that committee, that there was no political interference. There was a years-long Justice Department investigation into this as well that also concluded no political interference. So help us, from a 50,000-foot level, explain, what do you now have that refutes those two?
Sure. I will encourage you, in my role as the Director of National Intelligence, my job, again, as I said when I came into this role, was to make sure that we are telling the truth to the American people and that we are ensuring that the intelligence community is not being politicized. So I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you and the media to conduct honest journalism and the American people to see for yourself in the documents that we've released now, close to 200 pages, that point in multiple references, multiple examples, to include comments that have been made by senior intelligence professionals who are some still working within these agencies today that confirm the conclusions that we have drawn, that President Obama directed an intelligence community assessment to be created to further this contrived false narrative that ultimately led to a years-long coup to try to undermine President Trump's presidency.
And it's your belief that those two previous investigations missed that or covered it up?
I'm telling you to look at the evidence. Look at the evidence and you will know the truth.
John.
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Director Gabbard. You declassified these documents, if I'm not mistaken, Friday of last week, correct?
We released them on Friday of last week, the first tranche, yes.
This isn't the first time that President Trump has been president of the United States. He was president from 2017 to 2021. Couldn't the prior DNI under President Trump have declassified these documents? And why didn't that DNI do that at that time?
I can't speak to what happened there. There were several DNIs under the first Trump administration. President Trump faced many challenges from those who were working in the government who sought to undermine his presidency. That's been clearly detailed. What I can speak to is the fact that this was one of the first things that we started to investigate here within this Trump administration and have released the results upon the conclusion of our investigation.
And then my second question has to do with what intelligence agencies around the world have said about Russia, that they have tried to influence elections in the United States, in France, in Germany, in the UK. Do you disagree with that? Do you believe that Russia is a bad actor as it relates to trying to influence elections?
I'll point back to the intelligence that President Trump has ordered declassified, that we have declassified and released, that the intelligence reflects Russia's motives were to try to sow discord and chaos within the U.S. election, which is a clear distinction from showing a preference for or against a specific candidate, which is what the Obama manufactured intelligence document alleges, that Russia preferred Donald Trump and tried to help Donald Trump get elected. Again, going back to the most important point here, with the intent to undermine the legitimacy of President Trump's election and therefore subvert the will of the American people who chose to send him to the White House.
Reagan.
Director Gabbard, Greg Reese with the Daily Caller. You laid out that the documents revealed that the Obama administration did not publish the December 2016 presidential daily briefing that demonstrated that Russia did not steal the election. Trump was receiving these briefings at the time because he was president-elect. Are you of the view that that information was kept out of the briefing because then President-elect Donald Trump would have seen it?
This black gunk is why your neuropathy won't go away. Okay, this might look gross, but trust me, you need to see this. These patches draw out toxins and improve circulation through your feet while you sleep. I was dealing with constant neuropathy pain for years. Nothing worked until I tried these. They're based on ancient Asian medicine, but made with modern technology. Look how dark they get. That's all stuff that was causing my nerve pain. 10 days in and I felt like a new person. If you're tired of the pain, you need to try these.
Do this 7 minutes a day until the end of October. We start on Monday, October 6th. In a week, you'll feel better. In 2 weeks, you'll look better. In a month, your wife won't believe your results. Here's a personalized plan of short chair workouts tailored for beginners over 50. It's just 7 minutes a day, beginner friendly, and requires no equipment. You can work out anytime, anywhere. Just scan the QR code and follow along.
I don't have any documents that speak to exactly what the new guidance was that was given as the reason for pulling that document, which, by the way, still has never been published until we released it last week, Friday. One could assume that they didn't want President Trump to see a document that came from the intelligence community that would contradict the Russia hoax narrative that began through the Hillary Clinton campaign with the Steele dossier.
One more. Maybe either for you or Caroline. The president said yesterday that Obama committed treason. Do you or the White House believe that the Supreme Court's immunity decision protects Obama from prosecution?
Look, I can speak to the president's feelings on this matter. He spoke to all of you yesterday in the Oval Office, but I also spoke to him about this morning. And he wants to see all those who perpetuated this fraud against our country, who betrayed our country and the Constitution, to be thoroughly investigated and held accountable. And it's been 10 years of this, and I would just add, based on everything the director has said and declassified, all of you in this room should go through it and take a look at this report and review the intelligence, because unfortunately that hasn't happened. And many of the people who perpetuated this hoax, Clapper, Andy McCabe, James Comey, and many others, have been hired by major networks in this room to go on television and continue to spew these lies, knowing that they are lies. And if you all recall, just flashback to 2016 and the years after, the entire Trump 1 presidency was embroiled in this scandal that was perpetuated by the Democrat Party. And you had major Democrat Party officials in this city, namely Adam Schiff, Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren, who went on television and told the American people, Donald Trump is an asset of Russia. It was a lie. They always knew it. Hillary Clinton herself said that President Trump would be a puppet for Putin. Senator Tim Kaine at the time called President Trump Vladimir Putin's defense lawyer. Adam Schiff stated, and one of the worst things a lawmaker can do is to tell the American people, I know something you don't know, it's just classified and I can't tell you. And that's what he said. I can tell you that the case is more than that. I can't go into the particulars, but there's more than circumstantial evidence now. And not enough people in this room, not enough journalists in this country pushed Adam Schiff to say, what are you talking about? What evidence do you have? Everybody just ran with the lies, and it led to impeachments. It led to the division of our country. Unfortunately, so many Americans, from listening to outlets in this room, believed in these lies. And it's a complete scam, and it's a scandal, and the president wants to see accountability for that. Phil.
Thank you. Question for Director Gabbard. A spokesperson for former President Obama said in a statement earlier this week, quote, "Nothing in the documents issued last week undercuts the widely accepted conclusion that Russia worked to influence the 2016 election, but did not successfully manipulate any votes." How do you respond to critics like former President Obama and also others on the Hill who say that the administration is conflating apples and oranges here, conflating allegations of actual hacking of voter machines and allegations of interference generally?
I think it's a disservice to the American people that former President Obama's office and others who are criticizing the transparency that is being delivered by releasing these documents. They are doing a disservice to the American people and trying to deflect away from their culpability in what is a historic scandal and negative action towards the American people and our democratic republic. The answer to that statement can very clearly be found throughout all of the documents that we have released. Again, showing that Russia has took action to try to sow discord in the election, but showed no preference for or against any singular candidate.
You've long been an opponent of weaponization in government. How do you respond to criticism that referring to Obama administration officials and even potentially the former president is just more weaponization, and this is a potential race to the bottom?
I think that's a very disrespectful attack on the American people who deserve the truth. They deserve to have faith and trust in the integrity of our democratic republic, which has been undermined by President Obama through his direction of this manufactured fake intelligence document, knowing that it was filled with lies and knowing that it would and could then be used for all of the actions that came after.
And I would just add, there needs to be accountability for that weaponization, Phil, that we've seen. And no one has been a victim of the weaponized government more than President Trump, not just because of this political scandal. You all recall his house was raided. So I think, it's very disingenuous for people to say, how dare they speak of former President Obama about this based on evidence and based on intelligence, when the former President of the United States, Donald Trump's home was raided, when he was forced to sit in a Manhattan courtroom and many other courtrooms across the country for crimes he never committed, when he was impeached and indicted, and the entire country witnessed that. That's the weaponization of justice. Now the president is back because the American people see the truth. Nearly 80 million Americans reelected him back to this office, and he believes that we need to have justice and accountability. And I think the nearly 80 million Americans who reelected him agree with that. Caitlin.
Thank you, Caroline. Two questions for Director Gabbard, just on this. Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Community, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion. That they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. One, are you saying that he's wrong in that statement that you made then? And secondly, what would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
Well, first I want to correct something that you stated, which was citing the Senate Intelligence Committee's report as being one and the same. I think you said the intelligence community. The Senate Intelligence Committee has a very different function than the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. The evidence and the intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Caroline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this, that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians, all of these lies that were never true. And he also said at that time, we discovered deeply troubling actions taken by the FBI under Comey, particularly their acceptance and willingness to rely on the Steele dossier without verifying its methodology or sourcing. The Steele dossier that many outlets in this room ran as the gospel truth, and it was cooked up and paid for by the Clinton campaign. As as for your second question, Caitlin, I think, who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to, and that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president made. Does anyone else have questions for Director Gabbard? And then we'll turn it over to a couple other questions. Christian, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Director Gabbard, 2 follow-ups on questions that have been asked. You mentioned the previous DNIs during the president's first term. One of them reports to you right now, if I'm not mistaken, John Ratcliffe. So have you not spoken to him about why this information was not declassified during the first term?
He was in that position for a very short period of time. The work that began back then, we have picked up and absolutely completed. We are continuing to investigate this. Additional whistleblowers are now coming forward because they see an opportunity for the truth to come to light. And as Caroline said, for real accountability to be brought forward. The accountability is the essential part of this. We can show the truth, reveal the truth. The accountability needs to occur to be able to start to restore that trust in the integrity of our democracy.
And then just quickly, I know you said you leave the charging to DOJ, but the statute of limitations on conspiracy is 5 years. So what else could they possibly pursue besides treason?
I think that's a great question for Attorney General Pam Bondi. We're providing all of the evidence, all of the intelligence that we have, both redacted and unredacted versions, referring it to the Department of Justice and the FBI.
We'll take one more, Charlie, go ahead.
How credible was the information about Hillary Clinton's health? The report said that it was from sourced from the DNC. Have you seen that information or do you think that maybe Russia was overemphasizing what they had?
All I have seen is what the Intelligence Committee have reported through their investigation. I think that the underlying point there is that we understand from intelligence what Russia said that they had. And the important point here is that if they were trying to influence the election, as President Obama and James Clapper and John Brennan, everybody said they were doing in order to support Donald Trump's election, they would have released the most damning of that information, some of which I detailed here. You'll find the rest in the report prior to the election to help Donald Trump win. They specifically withheld what they had on her, the most damning information, because they thought that she would win the election. They had plans to release it just prior to her inauguration to, again, sow discord and chaos in America.
If I may, on Jeffrey Epstein, can you rule out that he was connected in some way to any kind of intelligence, either foreign or domestic?
I haven't seen any evidence or information that reflects that. If anything comes before me that changes that in any way, support the president's statement loud and clear. If any credible evidence comes forward, he wants the American people to see it.
Great. Director Gabbard, we thank you for your time today. I know you're a busy woman, so we'll let you get out of here, but thank you so much.
Mr. Boots. It's okay. I'll just grab the backup stakes.
Backup stakes? How do you afford that, money bags? The lowest prices of any national grocery store. Well, fair enough. It's an Aldi thing.
Pop quiz for anyone who's been in a car accident. True or false? Most cases end up settling anyway, so you should accept the insurance company's first offer. No, false. Here's what usually happens when you get in a car accident that's not your fault. You'll get a payout offer from the insurance company, and it might be a pretty low one. This is where a good lawyer comes in. The insurance company is probably just trying to barely cover the cost of damages, if that. In fact, a study found that working with a lawyer got people 3.5 times more compensation on average. At Find Legal, we've got a whole network of experienced car accident attorneys. You fill out a quick questionnaire and we'll connect you with a lawyer in your area who can review your case. Simple as that. With the lawyers in our network, you only pay if you win or settle your case. They get paid if you do. Head to Find Legal using the link below and get started now.
Okay, I know there's many issues going on today across the world and here at home. If you have any other further questions, I'm happy to take them. Ed, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. So, the Japan trade deal, is that Japan trade deal the start of this number of trade deals that the Treasury Secretary says we're going to see by August 1st?
I think it is. I mean, as you said, we had Japan yesterday. We also had Indonesia, and we had the Philippines as well. The president announcing all three. He came in as the closer in all three of those. I've said many times from this podium that the president's trade team has been in active talks and discussions with many countries around the world, and you've all been anxiously awaiting what those countries were. Now you know three of them, and there's many, many more to go. We have now sent 25 letters to countries around the world. But just to reiterate this Japan deal, for those at home who may have missed it, Japan will now pay a 15% tariff versus the reciprocal rate of 24% that they initially had. Auto and auto parts tariffs have been reduced to 15%, but the centerpiece of this deal now is the president got Japan to commit to $550 billion in investments to revitalize American industries. And these funds will be spent at President Trump's discretion and direction into key industries such as energy, semiconductors, critical minerals, pharmaceuticals, and shipbuilding. And the U.S. will retain 90% of the profits from any investments made by this. $550 billion fund. This was originally a $400 billion investment that President Trump then negotiated to an increase of $150 billion, making it a $550 billion deal for the American.
If you think it might rain later, then all you need is this bearskin heavy storm rain jacket. That's because this is the only
civil rights movement that opened up the FBI and the federal workforce to lots of people who never would have been hired in its first decades. Alas, you share J. Edgar Hoover's dangerous obsession with blind loyalty over professionalism and effective public policy. For Hoover, it was blind loyalty to him in keeping his secrets. For you, it's blind loyalty to Donald Trump in keeping his secrets. During your confirmation, it was widely noted on all sides that your primary qualification was your unwavering loyalty to Trump. Unlike other directors, you had no work experience at the FBI, but you had made over 1,000 media and political appearances in support of Trump's campaign. Your Senate confirmation vote was 51-49, the closest in history, with your opponents warning you were not qualified and had no interest in actually developing the qualifications for the job. I hoped that they were wrong. Alas, they were not. While most other new FBI directors drew on their experience as FBI agents, you didn't have that. But you did write a picture book trilogy for children ages 5 and up based on your experience clashing with President Trump's political enemies. In your book, you describe your literary alter ego, Cash the Knight, as a wacky, easily bored wizard carrying out King Donald's vengeance by driving his enemies out of the kingdom. In the books, King Donald is besieged by the evil Hillary Queentown, but saved in the end by Cash. Then Cash goes on to catch mules who are stealing the 2020 election for the great King Donald from Sleepy Joe. And then in the third book, Cash takes down the Dragon of the Jalapenos, nicknamed the DOJ. Your supporters had hoped that you would graduate from imagining yourself a romantic fairy tale knight to actually running America's premier federal law enforcement agency. Alas, just as we've learned how dangerous it is to put a science-denying anti-vaxxer in charge of our public health, we've learned how dangerous it is to name as director of the FBI a man who thinks of himself as a fairy tale knight who keeps a fire-breathing dragon named DOJ at home to forcibly drive villains out of the kingdom. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, while his killer was still on the loose, you decided you didn't need to be at FBI headquarters in Washington to work with your team while the chaotic manhunt unfolded. You spent your evening dining in a swanky Midtown Manhattan restaurant and tweeting out false information that the subject of the shooting was in custody, a statement you had to retract 1 hour later. Your performance was so disturbing that even the MAGA base was alarmed. Culture warrior Christopher Rufo, who just a few months ago sat in your chair as a Republican witness, observed that you performed terribly, and he called for your ouster. The FBI might be able to survive your delusions of grandeur and the explosively volatile temper that was on display yesterday in the Senate, but the intractable problem is that you are running the FBI not as a law enforcement agency charged with keeping the American people safe, but as a political enforcement agency working directly for the president's vengeance campaign. 7 months in, it's impossible to overstate the destruction, chaos, and demoralization you've brought to the FBI and its workforce and the resulting danger your actions have caused to our country. You've been systematically purging the FBI of its most experienced and qualified agents, division leaders, and experts in counter-terror, counterintelligence, and cybersecurity, precisely the people who have the expertise you lack, in which the FBI and the country need. They've been expelled from the ranks of the Bureau simply because they did their duty.
What I don't understand is he makes all this point about, Kash Patel not being qualified. But I've watched numerous hearings in Congress where during the Biden's administration, there were tonload of people that were hired to position for, district attorney, the head of aviation for the United States, who had zero, and I mean zero experience for those positions. So I'm not talking for either side, either Democratic or Republican, but they both do this. They hire the people who fits their agenda. During the Biden administration, we saw where in the military, the head of military, a lot of military departments were men dressed as women, and they weren't qualified. They absolutely were not qualified to do any of their jobs. We saw where, the press secretary for the last 4 years, Ms. Pierre, had no idea what she was talking about. She was one of the most unqualified person, and they put her as the face of the Democratic Party in terms of when they were having interviews and things she spoke on. She came every day in front of our face, even if you're a Democrat or Republican, you all knew she was lying. She couldn't stop. It got to the point where I watched some of her stuff and I'm like, bitch, stop lying to me, bro. And I just couldn't believe. Oh, I saw the president today and he was in great health. Hell, he played 6 rounds of golf and then, he came back and he was strong. Just like how, Kamala Harris came and spoke to us and told us how the president was in tip-top shape. His mind was as sharp as ever. And then a month later, she ran for president saying she's the best candidate. I mean, I really don't believe most of anything any politician says, and there's always an agenda. Every one of these members that you see come before us trying to, dishonor and pull down the other person, they have their own agenda also. The Democratic Party, we're in a government shutdown now. The Democratic Party is saying we want 100 and whatever billion dollars so we can support illegal immigrants and give them health care and give them this and give them that. I mean, are you fighting like that for the American people? Are you fighting like that for me? I've been in this country since 1998. I've been paying taxes. I don't get no food stamp. I don't get no government assistance. I don't get anything. And then there's times when I'm saying to myself, man, next month is going to be hard. I'm going to either eat or I'm not going to eat and pay my mortgage. Can I go to the bank and say, hey, bank, I've been paying my mortgage for the past 17 years. Can you give me a couple weeks? Can you give me 6 weeks? So I can catch up? They'll never do that. You can never go to your local government. I know people here that work in government, local government, who've been trying for 4 or 5 years to get a $1 raise. A $1 raise, as in local government. A $1 raise under the Democratic Party. I've worked in local government here in Florida, and I've worked at the same place for a few years. And we begged and begged and begged for a raise. They gave us 50-cent raise. 50-cent raise. When you have people on Social Security, Medicaid, who's been dead for over 200 years, getting thousands of dollars a month. These same politicians like this, lie in his pocket. This man you see talking to us, going at Kash Patel, talking about Kash Patel is, President Trump's dog. What were they a couple years ago? What was Kamala Harris a couple years ago? What was the DOJ a couple years ago? We all knew all the trumped up charge for Donald Trump years ago was foolishness. We all knew that, whether you're Democrat or Republican. Now put your political preference aside and think about it. We all know Donald Trump didn't do 99% of the things they said. The man's a businessman. The man ain't got to do this. He ain't got to do no foolishness. The man is a billionaire who's been successful in actually every country around the world. He can go and build a Trump Tower in Jamaica to be successful, and that's where everybody will go. He has Trump Towers in Ireland, England, Europe, all over the United States. That man is successful. Do you think when they went at him a couple years ago and he was going to pay $340 million, if he was found guilty, first of all, he wasn't going to pay it anyways. The man ain't going to pay it. He knows the bankruptcy king. He's not going to pay it. And not only that, you think that Donald Trump doesn't have friends who are multi-billionaire? You think that Elon Musk wouldn't have paid that for him? You think that Donald Trump couldn't afford that himself? You don't think that Takayama from Japan, that one of his rich buddies that donated almost $200 billion in investment, that all he had to do on stage was, you can do 200 billion. And he says, yeah, I'll do 200, from 100 to 200 billion. You think that this man and his rich friends from over the years can't pay $350 million? All of these guys has an agenda. Every single guy. This man is sitting in front of you. I guarantee you go dig in his past and you really dig. He's been paid by so many big businesses. They sit here and they lie in our faces every day. They go back and forth with each other, and they know the deal. Barack Obama came in on a public servant salary. What does the president make? $200,000 a year? Maybe. Not even. Maybe $250,000 tops. After you finish your presidency, you can do a couple, you can write a book, you can do some live appearances, you can make a good living from that. Even as the first lady, children of the first family when they were president, and you can make a decent living. You can make enough money to where even your kids, since you've been in the public view for so long, your kids don't even have to work a job, because these kids are not going to work anywhere. Now, the Obama's kids never worked a day in politics, ever. And they're richer than you and I. Barack Obama, on a public servant's salary, yes, he was a lawyer and he was somewhat successful, worth what, $60, $70 million? Michelle Obama, what job has she had since she was the first lady? That stupid little podcast she does with her gay brother. And now we can see why Barack Obama was so adamant about pushing the DEI and the gay movement on our youth. We heard him say it on her podcast, on their podcast. What did she say to the world? Oh, no, what did he say to the world? Oh, young black man should have a gay role model. Because when I was in college, of all the people in college, of all the thousands of people on my campus, I was more attracted to a gay professor, and he was my mentor. Now, why you think it's so evident in our schools? Why you think during the Obama presidency, they would literally lock up a parent if the child said, "Oh, I want to be a girl," and he was a boy. I want to be a boy, and he was a girl. Why do you look at Michelle Obama's brother? Does he look straight to you? Does he look like he has girls tearing down the front door? Where do you think that narrative came from? They project, all of these politicians project their own ideology on all of us, no matter who they are, Democrats or Republicans. And Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and the gay brother, they succeeded. They succeeded so well. We've split common sense people, thinking people, to believe that it's okay for a man dressed like a woman to go into the bathroom where your 5-year-old daughter is and use the bathroom, while you as a man can't go in there and watch it because you're actually a man watching another man dressed as a woman enter a bathroom where your daughter is. But a lot of people who defend these kind of behaviors, it never hits them until it's at their front door. Until one day, God forbid, knock on wood, their daughter came home and said, "Dad, this man dressed as a woman raped me." And I'm not wishing that on anybody. But I'm saying they would never understand it. They would live in that delusion until it really happens to them. You have people who say, "Oh, guns are so terrible. Charlie Kirk deserved to die because he promoted guns." He promoted your right to the Second Amendment. You don't have to own a gun. The Second Amendment gives you the right to do so, but it doesn't say you have to do so. If you want to own a firearm, you can own a firearm. Charlie Kirk is not saying every American should own a gun and be, a rightist or a conservative gun-wielding idiot like they think most conservatives are. He's saying you have the right to own a gun. And regardless if he died by a gun, that has nothing to do with it. I love cars. I love motorcycles. People die off cars. People who love cars die in cars every day. People who love motorcycles die in motorcycles every day. Knock on wood. Be safe out there if you ride a motorcycle or you're a crazy driver, okay? But we're not gonna say, "Oh, that man deserved to die in that car because he drives so fast all the time. He deserves to die on that motorcycle because he loves motorcycle and he always talk about motorcycle on his YouTube channel." That makes no sense. You can't say a man deserves to die by a gunshot because he perpetuated people having guns. He's perpetuating the right for people to have guns. He's not perpetuating any gun. I'm positive Charlie Kirk does have a gun in his home to defend his family. And guns in our community aren't meant to kill our brothers and sisters in the United States. They're meant to defend you from tyranny, if it shall appear. It's supposed to defend your family, your homestead, keep you safe from the other crazy people who have guns. You can't say, the fact that Charlie Kirk died by a gun, he deserved it because he promoted gun. That's a backward ideology. If you find someone that think like that, it says a lot about them. It says this person is an idiot because there's no reasoning skill behind it. Now, this man comes out and he says, Kash Patel wrote a book and he's doing this and he's defending Donald Trump. Okay, so what? If I go into government tomorrow, if I go into local government tomorrow, and before I get into local government, I hear how corrupted it is and how the officials there are pocketing money, and I'm a politician and I go there, right? Do you think I'm going to keep half those people there? Who do you think I'm going to bring with me? My own sympathizers. It's human nature. You're not going to bring in the same corrupted officials that were there before, like infecting the government. No. And not only that, if you were just prosecuting me to the fullest, you have this black lady in New York telling everybody I'm the worst of the worst, and you have this this judge in New York looking like a Hogwarts wizard, laughing and giggling, putting up a 340 million lawsuit, telling me that everything that I did in the past was illegal when none of the banks said anything. All the banks said, "Nah, this man paid his bills. We do more business with him. He's good to go with us." And then you're pushing that narrative. But now the man is in power and he has his own watchdog, which we all know. I'm not going to hide. We know Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Pete Exet. They work for President Trump. It is what it is. The same reason when Barack Obama was president and he pushed the DEI, content on your kids, nobody had any outrage. No one had any outrage. No one was upset. No one was upset when everywhere you went, you see the rainbow flag. No one was upset when they were saying, you can't tell your child that he doesn't want to be a girl. No one was upset when you look at Disney and you saw 2 male Disney character kissing, 2 female Disney character kissing. Can you imagine back in the days if you would see something like that on TV? You couldn't, as a child, I couldn't even say the word sex around my parents. If my parents was talking about anything sexual and I sat in front of them and I looked in my mom's mouth, just looking in her mouth, I'll get smacked in the face. If I heard my mom say something about a guy and I stood around too long, I'd probably get punched in the mouth just for standing there. But yet still, they perpetuated that all over the internet, everywhere. That's like me saying I'm an heterosexual male. And you know what? I'm straight, and I'm going and I'm plastering it everywhere. I don't need to plaster everywhere that I'm a straight male. I am who I am, and that's it. You don't need to push it on my child. I'm not going to go to my child's school and say, hey, I'm in love with a woman. It's understood. The Bible already said it. This is how you got here. You're an heterosexual male. And 2 of them come together to create. Listen, I don't care if someone is gay or straight. I don't care. My point is, you don't need to tell me. Keep it to yourself. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're straight. I don't care if you like women. I don't care if you like men. Leave me alone. I don't want to hear. When I go to work, I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're straight. We can talk little stories and we make jokes and everybody do it in the workplace. Straight people make fun of gay people make fun of straight people. I've worked with gay people. Some of the nicest people. They have some of the worst jokes. They're awesome. But I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're gay. Leave me the hell alone. And don't throw it in my kid's face. And we saw where Michelle Obama, you know, and people would say, oh, black love. Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, you know, black love. And we saw her come on our podcast. First of all, it is embarrassing. A former first lady who has a podcast. What? That can't be, that's some kind of low. What do you need to do a podcast for? First of all, if I have my wife or my wife has me and I'm a multi-billionaire, I'm a political figure. Listen, woman, go sit down. I don't want you talking nothing on no internet. I don't want you to slip up and say nothing. I don't want you to engage in any conversation that's going to leave our legacy tainted. The more Michelle Obama talks, and you guys can tell me if I'm lying or not, the more Michelle Obama talks, the less of the mystique that the Obamas have. The more they talk, it's like, oh my God, shut the hell up, lady. Oh, when Barack is at home, he can't touch the thermostat. I was like, don't touch, emasculating the man on TV. This was once the leader of the free world. And you say he couldn't even touch the AC in his house? This man has bombed countries, killed terrorists across the world, responsible for the most people ever deported in our country. But he can't change the thermostat in his house because his wife said so. And she's so proud to say it on the internet. And this is what American people strive for. Because of how the leadership is, and we can see a shift in leadership, where all these women that are talking about, oh, I don't need no man, and man, it's changing. Because the government is no longer subsidizing their lives. And what that is doing is forcing men and women to stay together. Forcing out that false narrative that women don't need men. And because of how the government was prior to this, they would just empower a woman and tell them, oh, yeah, a woman can do everything a man can. And we know that's not true. Now, I'm not saying woman can't do anything a man can do, but I'm saying she can't do everything. We have roles as men and women. Men have their roles, women have their roles. A woman can have a job. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But she has a certain role to play as a woman. And so does the man. It's not the government's job to get in between it and say, you know what, lady, you don't need your man. We got you. No. Go to every other country. Couples work together. Both men and women go to work. The narrative in this country is, oh, you don't need no man. You can do it all your own. You can go to college, get some useless degree, be 45, 50, have no kids, retire with your cat, and have a lot of money. And that is what I think previous administration has indoctrinated in our culture. And what I see President Trump is doing, and you can see it by how a person leads their family. Let's juxtaposition how Joe Biden runs his family, and I don't have to say anything about it. The crack, the coke, the illusion with different foreign entities. And then we look at President Trump's family. Look how Melania carries herself. You would think she was the queen. Look, when she dresses, it reminds me of Lady Diana. I don't know if you guys know who Lady Diana was. She was Prince Charles' wife back in the days. Back in the 80s, 90s, she was a fashion icon. When I was in Jamaica, everybody wanted to look like Lady Diana. And in Jamaica, we go to church every Sunday, and people get dressed up in the hat and the dress. And I mean, church was like a fashion show. And anybody goes to church, they ask her mom. She wanted to look like Lady Diana. And you look how Melania dress. You look at how his sons carry themselves. You look at how the daughters carry themselves. They're not in the news. They're not slandering. They're all in politics pretty much, trying to better themselves. And then you look at the Obama's kids. You've never seen Trump's family kids smoking a cigarette in public, just looking like a bum. Never. None of his kids. Look at how somebody raised their kids, and you'll see what kind of president they'll be. And if you think I'm lying, put your differences aside. Put it aside and be honest with yourself. Don't think like a Democrat or a Republican. Say to yourself, why would these people constantly push this man as a racist? Because believe me, if he was a racist and they had the info, they would have put it forward. They would be nothing but happy to put it forward. I'm promising you, you can find more evidence of Joe Biden being a racist than you can find of Donald Trump. But we don't want to do any legwork. We just want the media to tell us what we want to hear. Me, that's why I do these lives, where you see the interaction between government officials like these, how they interact with other people. You think about past events and you include it in what you watch and make your own assumptions, right? Make your own assumptions. Whether it's a Democrat, Republican, I believe they both lie. I am a Republican, and I believe they lie to us every day. I do. I love Donald Trump, and I think he's the lesser of two evils because he puts the country first. He cares about the country. He's a businessman. Yes, he runs the country like a business because that's all he knows. And yes, he's better for it. I do believe that 100%. I don't believe that if Kamala Harris was the president, we would have any progress. I think we would have flooded the country with immigrants. I think they would have taken out so much money out of the taxes that we pay to fund other cultures, when I could not vote for someone who wouldn't say, hey, I'm going to put the people that pay taxes first and then everybody else come after. I cannot vote for someone who say, no, I'm going to give all these immigrants all the stuff. Look at what happens in places like Chicago, where they're taking away from people in their neighborhoods and giving them to immigrants. How is that fair? That the people in Chicago asked for things for years, and you couldn't give them a park for the kids. You couldn't give them a gymnasium so the kids can go to after school program. But you can take away every single thing those people had, turn it into a makeshift sanctuary for illegals. How is that right? How is that right for your people? How does that make you put the people that put you in that position? How do you justify that? How do you say, listen, man, I'm justified in taking away resources for the people who elected me as a public servant? Because the word public servant means I was elected to serve the public. It's a common sense title. Our officials are public servants. They serve us, not big business, not their personal interests, not the Democrats, not the Republican, not the far left, far right, none. They serve our interests. And in thinking so, why would you give my resources to other people and not me? How can you support someone that says, you know what? I'm not going to give you shit. I'm going to take that money and I'm going to give it to a foreigner. Or let me ask you this question. Would you invite someone in your house, feed them till their belly's full while your kids are hungry? Would you? I'm waiting. Somebody put it in the comment because everybody's silent. Would you invite someone in your house, feed them, clothe them, fill their bellies while your kid doesn't have food or clothing? I'm putting a simple context. Somebody say it. Yes or no? Over your kids. Over your family. I'm waiting. Don't worry. Go ahead. You're right. I'm sorry. I am shouting because I feel like I have to project for the camera. But my point is, this is what government does. This is absolutely what government does. And you wouldn't do that. So why do you expect the government that represents you to do that? Why wouldn't you want your government official to put you first? Why is it okay that European countries tax the bejesus out of us? I'm from Jamaica. For me to take a car from the United States, transport it to Jamaica, and have it there, it would cost me two and a half times the price of the car. Right? 2.5 times. Because of so much taxes that they charge. But yet still they do it to Americans all the time. Why can't we do it to them? How do you oppose that? How do you say, oh no, it's okay for other countries to just screw us over every day? You go to Dubai, you go to Europe, you go to France. Look how their countries look. Look how their countries look. You come here to the United States, you go to LaGuardia, you go to certain airports, they look so nasty and run down. You're like, why is the richest country in the world not putting their money into their infrastructure? Anyways, I said enough because I got Mr. The Truth Reels calling me a disgrace. And again, guys, it's people like these that bring down your IQ level. When you put out facts and things that can be proven, and all they say is you're a disgrace, but they have nothing else to say, that shows you they have an IQ of a rat, right? And they, instead of bringing up something that they can, go back and forth with you or have a rebuttal, they just say silly things like this. But guys, hope you have a wonderful day. We're going to continue watching this. We're going to hear what this gentleman has to say to Kash Patel. I believe that everybody has their own agenda. It is what it is. All presidency come in with their own people, and they do whatever they see fit, for their own agenda. Donald Trump is no different. He has not done anything different than that Joe Biden, Barack Obama, he did the whole Russia collusion. We know that it was fake. We all know that. It didn't take Pam Bondi to come out and tell us this. We all knew that. We all know that Donald Trump is not a racist. We all knew that Joe Biden was a good president. We all know his health was in decline. We all know that Barack Obama was not for the American people or for blacks. These things is not stuff that, you don't know. It's just that people know it and just rather they have a certain party that they prefer and they just choose to shut up.
Investigating crimes, including those committed by the mob that attacked the Capitol on January 6, 2021.
Now here he's talking about the mob. We already know that there were over 300 officials, plainclothes officials in the crowd that did nothing. So, you know what I mean? And he's talking all this smack, but it's okay.
and beat the hell out of more than 140 police officers, or simply because you suspected them of being insufficiently loyal.
And guys, don't forget the shutdown. The Democrats says we want what, $180 billion to give to illegal migrants to support them, and we gonna shut down the government. We don't get it. So this is the Democratic Party. This is what they do. They vote against, the Democrats actually vote against no tax on tip. That means when you work your overtime, they were voting that, nah, we're not going to pass that. Just because what Donald Trump said, it was from Donald Trump. Democrats don't love people, man. They love themselves. They love chaos. And you constantly hear them talk about, oh, Charlie Kirk deserved to die. And like a heinous act like what happened to the young man. They praised it, It's a sad world we live in, man.
To Donald Trump. You illegally sacked Brian Driscoll, the former acting director of the Bureau and a decorated counterterrorism expert who worked at the FBI for nearly 20 years. According to Driscoll, you told him your own job, quote, depended on the removal of agents who worked on the cases against the president, regardless of whether the agents chose to work on those cases or not. You added, quote, the FBI tried to put the president in jail and he hasn't forgotten it. You forced out the leader of the Salt Lake City field office, Mehtav Saeed, just weeks before Charlie Kirk's assassination, depriving the FBI of an experienced counterterrorism expert described by her colleagues as absolutely the best and legendary. She would have led the FBI's manhunt had she not been fired. When Trump decided that rounding up immigrants with no criminal records was more important than preventing crimes like human trafficking of women and girls, drug dealing, terrorism, and fraud, you ordered the 25 largest field offices to divert thousands of agents away from chasing down violent criminals, sex traffickers, fraudsters, and scammers to carry out this immigration crackdown. Director Patel, you treated the men and women at FBI with disrespect and paranoia. You've assembled a roving band of freelancing henchmen within your office and charged them with conducting unauthorized investigations, targeting and harassing career FBI employees. Amazingly, you forced senior leadership to repeatedly take polygraph tests to prove their political loyalty and pushed out leaders who refused these demeaning exercises. And now we're seeing one very clear reason why you want to build a political FBI, the Epstein files. You want an FBI blindly loyal to Trump and to you as his enforcer so you can continue your cover-up of a massive international sex trafficking ring with more than 1,000 victims, betraying all of the survivors of the sexual violence. Before you got into this job, you called for full release of Epstein files, telling podcaster Benny Johnson that the only reason the list was not released by DOJ and FBI was, quote, because of who's on that list. Upon your confirmation, you promised that, quote, there will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, no stone left unturned. And anyone from the prior or current Bureau who undermines this will be swiftly pursued. This spring, you ordered hundreds of agents to pore over all the Epstein files, but not to look for more clues about the money network or the network of human traffickers. You pulled these agents from their regular counterterrorism or drug trafficking duties to work around the clock, some of them sleeping at their desks, to conduct a frantic search to make sure Donald Trump's name and image were flagged and redacted wherever they appeared, whether an email, a text, a letter, an interview, a photograph, or a video. In May, Attorney General Bondi reportedly told Trump that his name had indeed appeared multiple times throughout the Epstein files. And not long thereafter, in July, you and the Attorney General released a memo claiming that, quote, no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted. In a few short months, how did you go from being a crusader for accountability and transparency for the Epstein files to being a part of the conspiracy and cover-up? The answer is simple. You said it yourself, because of who's on that list. Donald Trump's relationship with Epstein over the years is well documented. A week ago, the Oversight Committee released Trump's disturbing birthday book, Note to Epstein, written over a drawing of a woman's naked body, referring to a, quote, wonderful secret. The Oversight Committee obtained the note from the Epstein estate, not from the FBI, raising questions again of whether the FBI has been withholding documents. While you're unleashing the FBI to cater to Trump's desire to shut down the Epstein inquiry, the first 9 months of the Trump presidency have seen a spate of political violence and domestic terror events. We saw deadly attacks on political figures on both the left and the right. The brutal assassination of Minnesota Democratic House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and the attempted murder of Democratic State Senator John Hoffman and his wife, who miraculously survived a combined 17 gunshots. We saw an arsonist set Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence on fire. And of course, last week, we saw the horrific, cold-blooded assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah that has shaken the nation. 1 minute after Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck, a 16-year-old shooter in Evergreen, Colorado, radicalized by white supremacist ideology online, opened fire and critically wounded 2 other students at Evergreen High School. We've seen lethal anti-Semitic violence, including the murder of 2 young Israeli embassy staffers just blocks from the Capitol, and then in the attack on a gathering of Jewish people in support of hostages held in Gaza in Boulder in June. We've seen continued mass shootings at schools, like the domestic terror incident at a Catholic school in Minneapolis last month, which killed 2 children and wounded 18 others. And in August, a man fired more than 500 bullets at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, killing a police officer who was a Marine veteran and a father. People like Melissa Hortman and Charlie Kirk should be able to participate in politics as elected officials or active citizens without being shot down in cold blood in the United States of America. People should also be able to go to elementary school, to middle school, to high school, to work, to the mall, and to church without being shot down in explosions of gun violence. The important position at the FBI requires a leader who puts public safety and national security and the rule of law first. I'm afraid, Director Patel, you've given us reason to believe you've used the powers of the FBI to serve Donald Trump and his agenda of partisan retribution. You've broken your promise not to do that. You've betrayed Jeffrey Epstein's victims and survivors. You've turned your back on the career law enforcement officers of the FBI, and as a result, you've left all of us less safe than before. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. That opening statement may have been longer than any book director's ever written or anyone else has written. Without objection, all of the opening statements will be included in the record. We will now introduce today's witness. Mr. Patel has been the director of the FBI since February of 2025. He previously served as chief of staff at the Department of Defense, deputy director of national intelligence with the National Security Council, and also as a congressional staffer, as a federal prosecutor, where he focused on national security cases. And he also worked as a public defender in the state of Florida. We welcome our witness, appreciate his work, and thank him for appearing here today. We will begin by swearing you in. Director, would you please stand, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Let the record reflect that the witness has answered in the affirmative. You can be seated as you are. You've been through this yesterday. Did a fine job. Please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony. Director, you may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Raskin, and members of the committee. I want to begin today by discussing the appalling assassination of Charlie Kirk. It's important for this FBI to be transparent without jeopardizing our investigation, so a little bit of the timeline is important. Charlie Kirk was unfortunately assassinated on September 10th. We immediately, the next day, released images early in the day in local time in Utah to start the public partnership in our manhunt for the assassin and culprits. At approximately 5 p.m. local time, I arrived on the ground and walked the crime scene myself, and we flew multiple FBI assets in and out to process DNA simultaneously while bringing in evidence response technicians, hostage rescue teams, and other experts to assist state and local law enforcement with their investigation. At 8 p.m. local on September 11th, the FBI collected and populated and promulgated at a press conference a video of the suspect on the grounds. We also released enhanced images. Due to that release that I directed and ordered, the suspect involved was apprehended and in custody at 10 p.m. local time. That's less than 2 hours after we did the video release and the photo release. So within 33 hours, that individual suspect was in custody, and his family, who has since been interrogated, specifically stated 2 FBI interrogators that because of the video that the FBI released at my direction, and because of the photographs that they released, they identified their son, they confronted their son when he swung by their home, and that's what led to his apprehension. We are still, the FBI has that investigation ongoing, and it continues to be ongoing, and I want to thank the state of Utah and the state and local authorities there. And I also want to thank the Attorney General, President Trump, for directing resources to allow us to conduct that investigation as we have. Under this administration, the FBI has arrested more than 23,000 violent criminals. 23,000 in 7 months. That's twice as many year-to-date last year. We've taken over 6,000 firearms off the streets. 6,000 guns are no longer in the hands of criminals in 7 months. We've identified and found and located 4,700 child victims. That is a 35% increase year-to-date last year. We have arrested 1,500 child predators. That is a 10% increase year-to-date last year in just 7 months. We've assisted our partners with countless counterterrorism operations around the world. We've captured, at the FBI, 4 of the most top 10 wanted fugitives in the world in 7 months. To put that in perspective, that's as many as my predecessor nabbed in the entirety of the Biden administration. We got 4, we got more coming. On top of that, in 2 weeks, thanks to the help of the CIA, we collected and captured one of the individuals responsible for the horrific Abbey Gate bombing that led to the murder of 13 service members. We did that in 2 weeks. They didn't do it in the 4 years of the entire prior administration. Nationwide, we've been executing our Operation Summer Heat, the FBI's national focus on targeting violent crime based on intelligence-driven operations. Ask the citizens of Seattle, Miami, Memphis, Charlotte, Chicago, New Orleans. To specifically highlight New Orleans and Nashville, there has been a 250% increase in violent crime arrests in those cities alone, and other mid-major cities that I've just listed. In just a few short months, we have already unleashed 1,000 FBI personnel across this country. Every single state across this country is getting a plus up. This is a fiction that the FBI is short or that we are compromising the men and women in the field. They do not need to be in Washington, D.C., so we're sending them into the field to each and every one of your states. Because of that, crime is at an all-time low. We had to do it because of the explosion of crime. And maybe the most important stat for Americans to realize, in just 7 months, we are on track to produce the lowest murder rate in modern U.S. history by double digits. Those are results not of mine. Those are results of the men and women of the FBI. If you want to criticize me, bring it on, but do not attack the brave leaders in the field. We are also working 24/7, 365 on the opioid epidemic that is killing more than hundreds of thousands of people a year. We have seen 1,600 kilograms of fentanyl off the streets so far in 7 months. Year-to-date, 25% increase. To put that in perspective, that's enough to kill 1/3 of the American population, 120 million Americans. 100,000 kilograms of cocaine and meth gone off the streets. Earlier this year, I highlighted in Cincinnati, Ohio, how we're getting creative to chase down those that were willing to do harm to our citizens, not just by striking at the heart of the fentanyl producers, but the fentanyl precursor companies in China. And we indicted for the first time multiple companies and individuals, not just in America, but in mainland China, that are producing the ingredients that produce and make fentanyl that kill our children. And we're going to keep going. Counterterrorism work, cyber attacks, and foreign adversaries are something the FBI must never sleep on, and we are not sleeping. In the counterintelligence space alone, this year, year-to-date, 30% increase in counterintelligence arrests from the DPRK, Russia, Iran, and China. And I want the American people to know, in this setting, there's a lot of work that the brave men and women in the FBI are doing we just can't get into, but they don't stop. Our cyber threats, ransomware attacks, those harming our children online. We have nearly a 20% increase in indictments arrests in 7 months alone this year. We're going after those that harm our malware, infrastructure systems, telecom systems, and energy structure. Combating SALT and Vault typhoons are just a little bit of the examples we're doing. Maybe most importantly, under the counterterrorism and domestic terrorism umbrella, our nihilist, violent extremists, and those that label themselves 764, who wish to go online and convince children to maim and mutilate themselves and commit suicide. And we are producing record numbers of arrests under that umbrella organization. We even stopped an individual in the 764 network who wanted to conspire to kill an adolescent girl. He is now in custody. Transparency remains one of my main priorities at the FBI, and this is what I've done in my 7 months at the helm. We've produced more than 33,000 pages of documents to Congress to a variety of committees, including, I believe, 7,500 to this committee alone, if memory serves me correct. To put the 33,000 in perspective, my predecessor in 7 years produced 13,000 pages in total to the United States Congress. His predecessor in 4 years produced 3,000 pages in total. I repeat, I have produced 33,000 pages in 7 years to this Congress and will continue to do so. I'm dedicated to restoring the trust in the mission and the integrity of the FBI, and we cannot do so without congressional oversight, and I promise you I will continue to do so. On the Epstein case, the original sin on the Epstein case was how it was handled by Mr. Acosta when he first brought the case in 2006, 7, and 8. The original case had a very limited search warrant, had a very limited search window, had a very limited investigative window. I was not there when those search warrants and that investigation was launched. I would not have done it that way. They were limited to only 3 to 4 years of investigations from 97 to approximately 2001 and 2002 to 2005. Mr. Acosta allowed Mr. Epstein to enter into a plea agreement where he served weekend jails for trafficking minor women. He also was allowed to leave jail to go home on the weekends. Plus, he allowed a non-prosecution agreement to be signed as part of that plea deal, prohibiting future investigations from that prosecution and from that evidence, and prohibiting the collection of further material. That is the original sin. We are working with Congress to produce more than any administration ever has material on Epstein. And I welcome the challenge to tell us that we are not being as transparent as the law allows. We even went to court and asked the judges to lift those prosecutorial agreements and to lift those court order seals, and they denied us 3 times. Congress is welcome to do the same and join the fight. And I'd lastly like to focus on operation that the president led in DC. Because of this, we are taking this fight in DC to every single city across the country. 2,100 arrests in the last month alone. DC has seen a 60% decrease in gun crimes, 75% decrease in carjackings, and 53% decrease in deadly so. We're bringing that fight to the streets of America. I want to thank you for your support, and I'm proud to be the director that leads this FBI into a new headquarters building that they've needed for decades, saving the taxpayer $3.5 billion, and also providing our workforce a safe environment. If you don't know the calamity that is the Hoover Building, I invite each and every one of you to walk around. I'll give you a tour myself, and you can see where the cement falls on the heads of our employees that is only to be saved by netting. Just to give you an example. Thank you for support to our mission. And I do want to highlight one thing about DC. It's because the FBI gathered sources and evidence that we were able to, through our source network, identify the horrific murder of the DC intern Eric Tarpinian. And I've spoken to his family, and we are working to bring them justice. And Mr. Chairman, in my 16 years, now my 17 years of government service, if anyone has any questions about my service, bring it on.
Yeah. Thank you, Director. We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Ison.
Director, delighted to have you here. You are a breath of fresh air. As you outlined, and I won't repeat it, the accomplishments, you did so with the same resources as your predecessor, roughly. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
And so how much of that has to do with taking people out of the backside of the FBI and moving them into the field, into doing the job for which we primarily pay the FBI?
It's exactly what we needed done. 1/3 of the FBI's workforce resided in the National Capital Region before I got there. 1/3 of the crimes do not happen in Washington, D.C.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So 1,000 personnel of the FBI were deployed across this country on a permanent basis, and every single state in this union is getting a plus up, not a reduction, a plus up of 1811s of intel analysts and support staff. And that is why the crime rates are going down in record numbers.
Well, thank you for doing that, and it's perhaps the hardest thing for a bureaucrat to do is to lower the head count around them that support them, and I appreciate your willingness to do it different than your predecessor. A lot of what you covered earlier was the find, the discovery, and then the prosecution that is done by the DOJ. But I want to talk a little bit about the prevent side.
On the Charlie assassination, sir?
No, on all of these. Okay, for example, and I'll bring it up before the Democrats bring it up, January 6th. January 6th, we now know, because of your find, that in fact, there were people involved who were not just observers, but participants who in fact, it's been alleged, and I personally believe, in fact, were part of promoting, perhaps even the one woman who died, encouraging her to walk through a door that led to her death. When you see that kind of activity, and you know it was done under predecessors with full knowledge, whether it's January 6th, where embedded people crossed the line, or any other activity, including obviously the Russian hoax that we're now dealing with up in, front and center. My question to you is, what can you or others do to prevent it from occurring again? Not on your watch, but on future watches. How can we know that this won't happen again the moment you leave the FBI?
It's simple. What I'm doing through our leadership cadre is having FBI agents do what they were trained to do, not what they were not trained to do, not put them in situations that both harm them and the public. We're also utilizing our SWORD networks and prioritizing the threat structure to go after the narco traffickers, the counterterrorism people, the counterintelligence threats, and the cyber threats. That's what they were trained to do, and that's what we're letting them do.
One major question I have, after decades of doing this, on our side of it, both the chairman, myself, and others, both at oversight and here, have seen that the FBI and the Department of Justice hide behind non-statutory practices. Now, you've changed the interpretation of many of those practices. That's why we're getting the discovery that was previously withheld. How do we work together to make sure that we never again have false walls, non-statutory walls that say the Department of Justice has a prohibition about giving, quote, you fill in the blank, that has led to the chairman not seeing anything until you took over?
I'm wedded to aggressive constitutional oversight. Having been a House congressional staffer, I know that is an important part of securing our democracy. And the way we make it an everlasting, enduring process is by showing the American people the results of what we are doing and the important work of this committee and putting it out to them so they can see government waste, fraud, and abuse. And then they can demand from our constituents and our electors that they want this process to continue.
Last major question here. Some things are so sensitive that we both would agree they cannot be made public. Will you commit to this committee, when it is too sensitive to disclose, that you would at least make it available for in-camera review by the chairman and ranking members or others designated?
I have done that and I will continue to do that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a breath of fresh air. This is the beginning of what we need. But my questions today for the director are ones in which I believe that we do need to codify by agreement or by statute if necessary, the kind of openness and transparency that we're seeing from this administration, the kind of discovery that's allowing us to do our oversight properly. And I would hope that that be the follow-up to this, obviously along with the Attorney General. And I yield back my 4 seconds.
Thank you. Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Director Patel. In the wake of the tragic murder of Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump said, quote, "Violence and murder are the tragic consequences of demonizing those with whom you disagree, day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible," close quote. I would note for the record that Donald Trump has famously demonized practically every person he has ever disagreed with. And therefore, using his own logic, he has put their lives at risk. I should note, about 2 weeks ago, when I announced my decision not to seek re-election, many people on both sides of the aisle, including the chairman, offered me well wishes and thanked me for my service. Donald Trump, on the other hand, took to Truth Social to call me a, quote, psychopathic nutjob, among other things. Yesterday, I received a threatening note filled with anti-Semitic comments and hateful attacks that mimicked some of the same language used by the president. I am sure many of us on this committee face similar threats every day. We have seen political assaults on both the left and the right. The attack on Charlie Kirk, the attempted assassination of the president, the murder of the Democratic Speaker of the Minnesota House, the assault on Paul Pelosi, and the attack on the Capitol on January 6th, for example. Director Patel, do you agree that there is political violence from both the left and the right?
If you're thinking of selling your home soon, you don't want to miss out on this. Not only will our team buy your house fast, we can also pay your next month's rent, mortgage, or cover your moving costs. We'll buy your home as is in any condition, no matter the price range. You can leave anything behind and you don't have to clean up or fix anything. If you like what I'm talking about here, we want to give you a free offer for your home in just a few minutes. Visit sellfast.com by scanning the QR code you see beside my video. Use the camera app on your smartphone. Aim it at the code and tap the link that comes up on your phone screen. Answer a few simple questions about your home and request your free offer. We'll make this process so easy for you. We'll buy your house as is, meaning there's no need to fix or clean anything, no fees, no realtor commissions, and you can leave anything behind. Don't miss out on this because you never know if you'll see this video again. So scan the QR code next to my video using the camera on your smartphone. Visit sellfast.com and request your free offer today.
There is too much political
Do you
violence.
agree, yes or no, that there's violence?
There is too much political violence based on ideologies from either side.
From either side, okay. Are you aware of the study by the Cato Institute, a well-known conservative group, that found that 69% of the violence is from the right?
I'm not familiar with that study.
You're not familiar, okay. I would commend it to you. Are you aware the administration has threatened to use violence as an excuse to crack down on liberty and freedom of speech?
Say that again, I'm sorry?
Are you aware the administration has threatened to use violence as an excuse to crack down on liberty and freedom of speech?
Nobody at the FBI is doing that.
I didn't ask you about the FBI, I said the administration.
I speak for the FBI.
I would like to enter the record an article from today's New York Times titled, "Trump Invokes Kirk's Killing and Justifying Measures to Silence Opponents." In the wake of Charlie Kirk's killing, President Trump and his allies have laid out a broad plan to target liberal groups, monitor speech, revoke visas, and designate certain groups as domestic terrorists. There's unanimous consent to insert this into the record. Thank you. Politicizing the murder of Charlie King to go after free speech is not a legacy I believe Charlie King would have wanted. Moving on, I want to address another topic. The FBI has traditionally played a key role in prosecuting public officials for corruption. But I fear that at a time when the president is accepting planes from Qatar for his post-presidential personal use, issuing pardons to major donors, and personally profiting from the office of the presidency, the FBI may be abandoning its commitment to investigating public corruption. Since its creation in the wake of the Watergate scandal, the Public Integrity Section has been one of the crown jewels of the Department of Justice, investigating and prosecuting corruption among the nation's public officials and acting as a key safeguard against politicized prosecutions. This section's work has been supported by an elite squad in the FBI devoted specifically to rooting out corruption. But according to reports, the Public Integrity Section has now been decimated, and the FBI's Public Corruption Squad has been disbanded. I would like to submit for the record a New York Times article entitled, "FBI Dismantles Elite Public Corruption Squad." Yes, unanimous consent? Thank you. These actions are an invitation to corrupt politicians to break the law, since they know that the government is asleep at the switch. Last month, Senator Warren and I, along with dozens of other members of Congress, wrote to you and Attorney General Bondi expressing grave concern over your decision to effectively legalize corruption and politicize prosecutorial decisions. And he asked unanimous consent to enter this letter into the record. Thank you. I don't have time today to walk through all your questions, all of our questions and concerns, but will you commit to answering this letter in short order so that we can understand what factors led to this decision and how it has impacted the ability to hold corrupt officials accountable?
I will review your letter with my team and respond as soon as
You will respond. Thank you. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director, for being here. I appreciate the change in the FBI and the tone since you've been there. We heard the ranking member, however, describe the FBI under your leadership as being resorting to political enforcement and you personally as being paranoid. I would just suggest that perhaps that is the projections of the ranking member himself and not you, sir. I want to refer to something that was said yesterday in yesterday's hearing by Senator Grassley. He said, "It's well understood that your predecessor left you an FBI infected with politics." At your nomination hearing, he gave you records, made public records about whistleblowers regarding something called Arctic frost. Arctic Frost was the FBI case opened and approved by anti-Trump FBI agent Thibault, and Arctic Frost became Jack Smith's elector case. The new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. In fact, it was expanded to Republican organizations. Some examples of the groups that the Ray FBI sought to place under political investigation included the Republican National Committee, Republican Attorneys General's Association, and Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups, Republican-linked individuals, were placed under the investigative scope of Arctic Frost. On that political list for investigation was one of Charlie Kirk's groups, Turning Point USA. In other words, Arctic Frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump. It was the vehicle by which partisan FBI agents and DOJ prosecutors could achieve their partisan ends and then properly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. I'd ask that, Mr. Chairman, that document be admitted.
Without objection.
So, I know that this may be under current investigation, but I wish to ask specific questions about this for just a moment. What search tools were used in Arctic Frost to view private communications of targets?
I believe the traditional search tools, search warrants, lawful service of process, and the tools that the FBI has in our infrastructure systems, cybersecurity systems, and counterintelligence systems. But generally speaking, if I may, I want to use this to highlight the fact that I'm continuing my promise to work with Congress to produce documents simultaneously and also conduct ongoing investigations. I'm giving you as much as I can, and I'll give you more when I can.
Thank you. Another question regarding that is, were there any directives from the Biden White House concerning the Arctic Frost investigation?
Were there any
directives or communications from the Biden White House itself concerning the Arctic Frost investigation?
I'll just rely on what was turned over to date, sir.
Okay. So I want to add here, the search warrants that were used included the seizing of a U.S. member of Congress, his phone. I think we all know who that was and how that was taken away and used for political purposes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Director. So we'll leave that for a second, and let's go over to the Charlie Kirk case for just a second. Let's emphasize this. How many hours did it take from the assassination to the arrest of the assassin, Mr. Director?
33.
That seems pretty swift, and it was because of the actual release of videos and photographs that you directed to be released, sir.
That's correct, and to put it in perspective, the Boston bomber took 5 days and Luigi Mangione took 5 days.
Was the platform Discord forthright from the start with law enforcement about the shooter's communications on its platform?
Discord, the platform ownership, has been working with our lawful process, and we are obtaining materials from them on a rolling basis.
Thank you. And I want to get back here to Arctic Frost for just a second, Mr. Chairman. I'd like the unclassified document from the FBI released to be admitted to the record.
Objection.
And a document from the Economic Times also to be admitted to the record.
Objection.
So I'm going to give you the last 30 seconds. We could go on about the Epstein case. I've got a bunch about that, but I'm just going to let you, if you wish to respond to either of the two vitriolic questioning or statement from the Democrats.
The work of the FBI speaks for itself. It's on showcase here today. Anyone that wants to attack the FBI can attack me, but leave our leadership structure alone. When you have 23,000 violent felons arrested, twice as many as this time last year, the work speaks for itself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. Appreciate your good work, Director Patel. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, before you joined the FBI, you railed against it for covering up Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking ring. Let me refresh your memory with this clip.
It has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
So you finished that December 2023 interview with a challenge to the FBI and harsh words for Republicans in Congress for not getting the Epstein files out to the public. You can see this clip.
boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are, you said. You emphasized that the president and FBI director each had complete authority to release Epstein's client list. You said Epstein's black book is under the, quote, direct control of the director of the FBI. Look at this clip.
And this is way off the topic, but who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black book?
black book?
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean,
Well, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
All right, so you were sworn in as director more than 200 days ago. Now the black book is under your direct control. So why haven't you released the names of Epstein's co-conspirators in the rape and sex trafficking of young women and girls?
The Rolodex, which is what everybody colloquially refers to as the Black Book, has been released.
Oh, no, you're talking about what the journalist got 5 years ago? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you were talking about there, the black book under the direct control of the FBI director.
We have released more material than anyone else before. The Biden administration, Obama administration had the exact opportunities to release this material, and they never did. And if you are selling the men and women of the FBI,
Why
we're not
did you
going after
change your
child
position?
predators. Hang on, you said we're not going after child predators. 1,500 child predators arrested this year, 35% increase,
I'll reclaim my time.
4,700 child victims
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to
found.
reclaim my time if you could instruct the witness. Well, why have you changed your position? There you were saying it's under the direct control of the FBI director and all of it should be released. Why have you changed your
Everything
position?
that has been lawfully permitted to be released has been released. And as I told you,
Really?
the investigation was limited. And let me make something crystal clear. I never said Jeffrey Epstein didn't traffic other people, other women, and they're not other victims. This is the investigation we were given from 2006, 7, and 8, and the search warrants from 2006, 7, and 8. That's what we're working with.
Oh, wait, have you released all of the stuff that the FBI has seized from Epstein's house? The computers, the emails, the file cabinets, the documents? And without the financial records, have you released all of that?
Everything the court has allowed us to
Which court are you talking about?
3 separate federal courts have come in and said,
We're talking about the evidence you've got. It's got nothing to do with what those courts have.
do you have any
We're talking
idea
about
how the
evidence.
law works?
Wait.
Do you want me to break the law in a federal judge's order?
No, I want you to
satisfy
follow your own
curiosity?
word, Director Patel. You said up there it was under the direct control of the FBI director. He had the black book. Have you
Everything I
released?
have direct control over, we have gone to court. You haven't.
Complete your
You haven't.
sentence. Everything you have direct control over, you
We
said.
have gone to court, and everything we have direct
Director
control
Patel,
over.
complete your
and
sentence.
can
You said everything.
lawfully release, we're
Gentlemen.
releasing.
He'd like to complete his answer.
You began the sentence, everything you have direct control over, and then you stopped that sentence. You've released everything that you have direct control over?
I have direct control over and can lawfully release. If you're not familiar with the court orders, that's not my fault.
Oh, I'm
Go
perfectly,
look at them.
I'm
Go
perfectly
to
familiar
court.
with them. But how did we prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell?
She was prosecuted with the investigatory material that was collected from 2001 and 2005. Because of the non-prosecution agreements and the court orders on the investigations and search warrants, we were not able to develop new information. And oh, by the way, Jeffrey Epstein was out for 12 years, and the Obama and Biden administration did nothing to look at his work, his pedophile network. If you want to blame me, that's fine. But now you're blaming the men and women who conducted
No,
this.
stop
great
that.
search.
I'm not blaming anybody other than you. You're not keeping your word. You said that you would release all of the materials
Has
under your
anyone
direct
released
control.
more information on Epstein than I have? Has
Well,
anyone?
much
Did
more-
Comey, did Ray?
Much
Did
more.
they?
Excuse me. Much more has come out in the days since the American people in Congress have been demanding it. But it's coming out in dribs and drabs. Why don't you just release the entire file as you promised to do?
I literally just told you, there are multiple federal court orders. I'm not gonna break the law to satisfy your curiosity. You didn't join us when we filed court to release the court orders. You could have. You have lawyers. You could have shown up. You didn't do that.
That's a tiny fraction of the material we're
That
talking
is
about.
not.
It is
How
a
do you-
tiny fraction.
How do you know that? Have you seen
No.
everything?
It's all
How do
misdirected.
you know
Time
that?
of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Director. Just to be clear, how many of the Epstein files were released in the 4 years of the Biden administration?
0.
And how many have you released?
I don't have the number, but it's gotta be thousands of pages of stuff.
I was going to ask you to begin whether Americans are safer today than they were 9 months ago, but you cited dramatic increases in criminal arrests since you've taken office, a dramatic decrease in crime that's resulted. Who would have thought that taking criminals off the streets would reduce the crime rate? But somehow we have stumbled upon that new truth. But it begs the question, what was the FBI doing during the 4 years of the Biden administration to see that dramatic an increase in work under your tenure?
The simple answer is I'm letting good cops be cops. We're working with our state and local law enforcement. We're energizing our partnerships. We're bringing on more task force officers. When you have more cops in the streets, when you're using ground-based intelligence, when you're not weaponizing law enforcement and focusing on DC and focusing on the rest of America, this is what happens. It is not a significant mind shift in terms of how we maneuver the FBI. They've wanted to do this work since they signed up. We're just letting them.
And we've seen many prominent Democrats oppose your efforts to restore law and order to the streets of our nation's capital. I mean, all of us here have seen a dramatic change for the better here in Washington, D.C. Why are so many Democrats attacking you for that?
The Miracle Mile RV Show is back October 9th through the 12th. Join us where I-10 and I-215 meet in Colton to shop special show pricing on over 36 football fields of new and used RVs. Parking and admission are free.
Hi moms, I'm Debbie Corlitis, an American patriot, wife, and mother. If you're looking for inspiring stories, expert advice, and heartfelt discussions about faith, family, and freedom, check out the Moms for America podcast. Together, we're shaping the next generation of patriots and strengthening the heartbeat of our homes. Subscribe today to the Moms for America podcast.
Do this 7 minutes a day until the end of October. We start on Monday, October 6th. In a week, you'll feel better. In 2 weeks, you'll look better. In a month, your wife won't believe your results. Here's a personalized plan of short chair workouts tailored for beginners over 50. It's just 7 minutes a day, beginner friendly, and requires no equipment. You can work out anytime, anywhere. Just scan the QR code and follow along.
Sir, Democrats have been attacking me for a decade, as is the fake news media. They didn't like the fact that I exposed the Russiagate host and the largest weaponization of the FBI, DOJ, and U.S. history. We proved it to be true with congressional oversight. I'm wed to that congressional oversight and will continue to do that work.
Christopher Wray repeatedly warned this committee that the Biden open borders policy had produced a significant increase in terrorist threats that he said kept him up at night. A particular concern, he said, is the 2 million gotaways that entered the country during the Biden administration. That's an average of 41,000 every month. What are the monthly gotaway numbers today?
Sir, I'll have to get back to you on the exact gotaway numbers, but identifying that there are gotaways is step one. Going and manhunting them is step two, and that's what we're committing our resources to.
Well, that's my next question, is what progress has administration made in apprehending and removing terrorist threats that came in during the Biden years?
I think you're talking about, if you're not, let me know, known or suspected terrorists, and we've encountered almost zero at the southern border since the southern border has been sealed. But the problem that we are running into is our northern border. It's largely expansive, the enemy has adapted, and we need more focus on the northern border to stop known or suspected terrorists from coming in from places like China, Russia, the Middle East, Africa, Afghanistan.
And what can you tell us about the remaining threat posed by potential terrorist cells here in the United States?
The terrorist threat that continues to be posed by international terrorists here in the United States is one of my highest priorities. We are working through our intelligence community partners to identify those individuals, and we've taken down numerous individuals in numerous rings across this country to neutralize that terrorist threat, including places like New York City, Los Angeles, and I believe Dallas, Texas most recently.
How extensively did criminal cartels like Sinaloa, Jalisco, New Generation, MS-13, Trinidad, and others infiltrate our country during the Biden administration?
By the tens of thousands.
And what progress have you been making in combating their presence?
I think the DHS is best to speak to that, but I think I can't remember the numbers of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of individuals they found that came in illegally, and the tens of thousands that associations to criminal networks have all been deported.
And that effort is being opposed every step of the way by Democratic leaders in our cities, some of our states, and right here in the Congress. Isn't that true?
Well, we're just working where we can in every single city we can, and I welcome the opportunity to partner with Republicans or Democrats on fighting violent crime like we're doing.
Mr. Biggs asked about Arctic frost. What else can you tell us about that and what we need to do to assure that it never happens again?
Continue the congressional oversight work that you're doing on Arctic frost. Let me provide you with more documentation on Arctic frost, and also call on witnesses from the paperwork that we have given you. You have that right, and the American public deserves to hear what those people have to say. As for my ongoing investigation, there's not much I can say.
What role did the FBI play in suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story during the 2024 election?
Off the top of my memory, sir, I believe the FBI was in possession of verified information from that laptop, and it was improperly publicized that they did not have information and masked it as Russian disinformation. We now know that was categorically false. I don't know why the FBI did that, when they did that, but we've released all the materials related to that.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized. Mr. Goldman.
Mr. Patel, does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
It's not a complicated question. Does Donald Trump appear anywhere in the Epstein files?
I didn't say it was a complicated question, I just didn't hear you, so my apologies. We have released where President Trump's name's in the Epstein files, and everybody else, and all credible information that we are legally allowed to release has been released.
All right, so let's go through that. You're referring to court orders that prohibit you from releasing grand jury testimony under Rule 6E. Is that what you're referring to when you say the law allows?
That's a piece of it.
Really? What other evidence do those three court orders you cited prohibit from being released?
Information that was collected pursuant to those search warrants that were limited
Wrong.
fashion.
Wrong. That's not what the court order says, and that's not under 6E.
And you're talking, and I said that's 6E, and I said there was others, and I'm answering that there are sealed court order documents, there are protective orders.
They are unsealed as part of discovery given to Ghislaine Maxwell. They are no longer sealed.
That's just not true. We can argue about it all you want.
Okay, well, you agree that there are, so your testimony here is that the reason why you are not releasing all of the videos that you have acknowledged, there are so many, and that the FBI spent thousands of hours of reviewing, the photographs, and the photographs that you have. You're saying that you're not releasing those because there's a court order requiring them to be sealed? Is that your testimony?
Never said that about the videos. On the totality of the videos, of the thousands of images that were seized pursuant to the search warrants executed at the time, the overwhelming majority of that video is pornographic material that was downloaded from the internet and child sexual abuse material. We will never release that.
Well, as you should not release the victims. But if there are videos that relate to others who Epstein trafficked to, such as maybe Prince Andrew, or photographs, that you have total control to release.
Yes, and if it
And
exists.
so why haven't you released it?
Why are you supposing that that is a fact when in fact it is false? Are you saying that?
You're saying that none of the videos relate to anything relevant to the Jeffrey Epstein trafficking ring?
Every single video that we have collected pursuant to the prior search warrants has been examined for the last 10 years. And every single video has been utilized for whatever prosecutions were able to be legally brought.
I'm not asking about prosecutions. I'm asking about why you aren't releasing the full Epstein files, including the names of people who were involved in the sex ring that you promised to do before you became FBI director.
I just told you, I'm not going to release downloaded porn.
I'm not asking about that. Fine. I'm asking about all the other files.
What other videos? Tell me. Tell me.
That's what I'm asking.
Tell me.
You're saying there are no videos that would be relevant to anyone else involved in the Jeffrey Epstein sex ring.
Pursuant to Mr. Acosta's collection of information based on the search warrants. That's all we have in our possession.
And I'm asking you, that stuff.
That's all we got.
I'm not asking all you got. I'm asking you, in that stuff, there's nothing that's related to to any other sex traffic, any other people engaged
with Epstein in underage sex?
That's correct, to my knowledge, no.
Okay, let's talk about the witness interviews. 302s of witness interviews. Those are not subject to the court order. Those are not subject to any fictional sealed order for a search warrant. Why aren't you releasing those with the redacted names of the victims?
We are releasing as much as legally allowed. That's why we went back.
How is that not legally allowed?
Sir, do you know how court orders work? Do you know how protective orders work?
Actually,
You know,
Mr.
sealing
Patel,
orders
I was a real prosecutor for 10 years. I know exactly how
so I was a
court
fake
orders.
one?
And I want to understand what the court order prevents you from releasing witness statements that the FBI took.
You should know that as a real prosecutor, when the court hand downs a protective order and a motion to seal, the material is sealed unless
So
that
your
judge
testimony
waives
here
it.
is that all of those witness statements are under a court order, a protective order.
We are providing everything we can legally provide.
No, that's not my question. My question is, why are those witness statements that are not grand jury testimony, that if they were under a protective order, are no longer under a protective order, why are they not being released?
How are they not under a protective?
Why are you not going to the court like you did for the grand jury testimony to unseal those records?
The DOJ did go to the court.
No, not on those records. Why aren't you going? You just went on grand jury. Time of the gentleman is expired. You are hiding the Epstein files,
Time
Mr.
of the
Patel.
gentleman is expired.
You are part of the cover-up.
Can I respond?
Sure can.
Any allegations that I'm a part of a cover-up to protect child sexual trafficking and victims of human trafficking and sexual crimes is patently and categorically false in the work of my
So I hope you will talk to them when they have requested to speak with you. Because the victims have requested and you are not responding to them. Director, yes or no, is the FBI still spying on parents at school board meetings?
No, sir.
Is the FBI still targeting Catholics?
No, sir.
Is the FBI still spying on President Trump?
I don't believe so.
Is the FBI still censoring Americans?
No, sir.
Is the FBI still targeting Americans for shopping at Cabela's or purchasing Bibles?
Nobody is targeted for their faith.
Is the FBI still targeting Americans who are pro-life?
Nobody is targeting anyone for their beliefs.
Is the FBI still cooking the books on crime data?
The crime data is real.
Is the FBI still purging agents for conservative viewpoints?
No one at the FBI has asked their viewpoints on
Is
policy.
the FBI still labeling the Betsy Ross flag, the flag of the American Revolution, a hate symbol?
No.
Well, maybe that's why you've been able to, what was the number? 23,000 bad guys you've arrested, a huge increase from the same time period in the previous administration. I think you said 1,400 predators, 4,000 children rescued. Were those effects?
4,700, 35% increase on children rescued.
Yeah. And you got the guy that, Abbey Gate?
We got the Abbey Gate guy.
The guy from the 4th District of Ohio who lost his life there serving our country. We appreciate that. Maybe when you're not focused on politics, you can actually do what the FBI is supposed to do. Go get the bad guys, right?
That's what the men and women of the FBI do.
Director, did John Brennan lie to Congress? Let me just read a couple things actually before you answer that. 2 years ago, we had Mr. Brennan in for an interview, and I asked him, how'd you learn about the dossier in December of 2016? Mr. Brennan replied, I received a copy of it from the FBI, and the CIA was very much opposed to having any reference or inclusion of the Steele dossier in the intelligence community assessment. That's what John Brennan told the United States Congress. 7 weeks ago, the Director of National Intelligence told us this: John Brennan lied and denied using the dossier in the intelligence community assessment because he knew it was discredited. CIA officer told the House Intelligence Committee Brennan refused to remove it, and when confronted with the dossier's main flaws, he responded, yes, but doesn't it ring true? John Brennan lied to us?
Mr. Chairman, I won't stylize the evidence. What I will say is that the intelligence community assessment, those that created it and any individual involved with it, is an ongoing investigation.
There's an investigation into what took place in December and January of December 2016, January 2017, when this whole thing started, this grand conspiracy. That is being investigated, is that right?
That has been publicly announced by the department.
That's been announced by the department. Did Chris Wray hide documents from this committee?
You would know better than me, sir.
Well, I think you told us like 700 pieces of information you've given this committee since you've been director relative to just one incident, the Catholic memorandum from the Richmond Field office.
I can give you the comparison, sir. Yeah, the Catholic memo, I believe we turned over 750 documents. In Mr. Ray's tenure, I believe they turned over 19 pages.
19 pages. You've given us 700. Why would Chris Wray hide information from this committee?
You'd
Have a
have to-
hazard a guess?
I'm sorry,
Hazard a guess why he would do that?
I don't know, sir.
I think maybe it was because FBI was spying on a priest, trying to get him to break the priest penitent confidence that exists. I think maybe that was the reason.
You'd have to ask him, sir.
Yeah, we'd love to do that. I want to read a few names here. Arctic Haze, Tropic Vortex, Riding Hood, Foggy Falls, Echoes Fate, Sirens Lure, Janae, Christmas. What are these code names about, Director?
How do we pay for all this?
It's an oldie thing.
Oh, yeah.
Were you recently injured in a car accident? If so, you need to stop now and immediately call an experienced auto accident attorney. Unfortunately, we've seen too many car accident victims attempt to settle cases on their own without the help of an experienced attorney. With no threat of lawsuit or litigation, insurance companies make lowball offers and pretend like it's the best they can do. Do not make this mistake. Look at this check for $237,000. This settlement and many others like it were payments our team of legal experts obtained for our clients. The right attorney can help you get top compensation for your vehicle or property damage, medical bills, lost income, and pain and suffering. Don't wait to contact us. The longer you wait, the less severe your case may appear. So what I want you to do is click the link below and either call us directly or fill out the 15-second survey form. Our legal intake department will connect with you and get you working with a top auto accident attorney. Act now before your ability to make a claim completely disappears.
You know,
Not off the top.
Arctic Haze, Tropic Vortex. My understanding these are code names for leak investigations of classified information from the year 2017. Does that ring a bell?
In terms of leak investigations, many of those are classified and many of those are ongoing, Mr. Chairman. But we are working with you to produce documents as we close those investigations or as we declassify them.
Let me ask you this question, because this is something I've wondered about, the way the FBI used to work. This whole thing so many of these things unfolded. Seems to me you had all these people in government leaking information that then gets reported in the press, there's a story written about it, and then that article is then used to further the investigation and move forward with what they want to do. Did that take place back in 16 and 17?
That's the exact scenario that took place in the FISA application for Carter Page and the rest of the Trump campaign.
And that is frightening, because that's what the CIA is supposed to do in foreign countries. It's not supposed to happen to Americans, but it did, didn't it, Director?
Yes.
And not just any Americans, it happened with the President of the United States. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and you were the key guy in helping expose that. And I think our country will be forever grateful for what you did to let the country know that was going on involving Americans, which is not supposed to happen, and not just, again, any American, but the President of the United States. Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm concerned by reports that FBI agents have been diverted from their important work on crime and anti-terrorism to work on matters that are not critical to our safety. I'd like to play the video, the whole video clip.
Black Book, yeah. But who? That is, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
Well, but the Black Book is not just sitting there. I mean, that's Hoover power times 10.
And to me, that's the thing I think President Trump should run on. On day one, roll out the Black Book.
In contrast to that attitude of let it all out, we're getting reports of actions that run contrary to getting everything out and that also involve diversions of FBI resources. For example, an FBI whistleblower reported that you were pressured by the Attorney General to place 1,000 personnel on 24-hour shifts to mine roughly 100,000 Epstein-related records to redact President Trump's name from the files. Bloomberg reported this, that you directed FBI special agents from the New York and Washington field offices to join the Bureau's FOIA employees in Winchester and another building a few miles away, and that while reviewing the Epstein files, FBI personnel identified numerous references to Trump in the documents, and people familiar with the matter said that Trump's name, along with other high-profile individuals, was blacked out. Now, the New York Times reports, and this is a quote, Justice Department officials diverted hundreds of FBI employees and federal prosecutors from their regular duties to go through the documents at least 4 times, including once to flag any references to Mr. Trump and other prominent figures. Details of the review were based on accounts by 3 former FBI and Justice Department officials who spoke on condition of anonymity because of fears of retaliation, and further that the FBI finished, after they finished its review of the files and materials, was sent to a team of Justice Department lawyers who double-checked the FBI's redactions and, quote, were instructed to flag any mentions of Mr. Trump and other celebrities. Now, I have 3 questions for you, Mr. Patel, about this. First, how many times did President Trump's name appear in the Epstein files? Was it more than 100, more than 1,000? Were the agents who were pulled from their duties to redact the president's name from the Epstein files working on criminal cases or national security cases or child sex trafficking cases? And are the number of agents that have been reported diverted for these purposes, is that accurate?
No.
No what?
You asked if it was accurate, I said it wasn't.
So you're saying that none of this happened? That,
No, I'm saying it was inaccurate.
okay. How many times did President Trump appear in the Epstein files? More than 100, more than 1,000?
No, and what we've been able to release is what we've been legally able to release, and that is.
No, that's not the question. I asked you, how many times did the president's name appear?
I don't know.
It's your testimony, you do not know that
A
answer.
number of times, no.
Could you tell us how many agents were diverted for this task and what they were working on?
When you say diverted, you make it seem as if agents were pulled off what they do all the time. Agents at the FBI masterfully do double duty and triple duty. And because of the public's interest in this case, we flex resources to make sure that we can answer the public's signal demand. So do you want us to look through the material provided to you, or you do not want us to do that?
So it's
Which
your,
one is it?
it's your testimony that no one was diverted from a criminal matter, that this was a top priority to go through this material to look for Mr. Trump's name. Is that your testimony? That's the highest priority for the FBI?
What's one of the most impressive things about the FBI leadership and the careers that are in place is that they make the decisions on who to send where on priorities and make sure the mission needs are not hurt. And that's what happened here.
It's shocking to me that the FBI would think that erasing Mr. Trump's name from the Epstein files is a high priority when we have crime, we have national security threats, we have terrorism threats, we have murders such as that occurred, unfortunately, with Mr. Kirk. It's shocking to hear that that's your highest priority. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I
That's
yield
literally
back.
not what I said.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
Director, is President Trump implicated in any wrongdoing related to Jeffrey Epstein?
Based on the entirety of the evidence that we have, absolutely not.
The president is not implicated.
Correct.
Thank you. I want to talk a little bit about China's malign influence here in America. And, we've seen spy balloons traverse the United States. We've seen police stations in communities around America. And sitting in the chair you're in just 2 years ago, there was a sheriff from Cochise County, Arizona, Mark Daniels, that was here, who said that the exponential increase in the amount of fentanyl that is coming into America is directly related to the open borders policies of the previous administration. Do you agree with Sheriff Daniels' characterization?
In large part, yes.
So, since you've been director, has there been a reduction with, we've talked about how the border is largely secure now, right?
The southern border, yes, sir.
The southern border is largely secure. Has there been a concomitant reduction or a reduction in the amount of fentanyl that is coming into America?
There has been a massive reduction to the tune of, we've seized more than 25% year-to-date this year than the prior year, and that's enough fentanyl to kill 120 million Americans.
Does China play a role in this fentanyl that's coming to America?
As I stated in my opening, sir, what they do and the companies in China, mainland China do, is produce the precursors and the cutting agents that they send ship overseas through various countries into the Mexican drug cartels who produce it. So they basically are the cooks in terms of the ingredients.
Tell us, what is the FBI doing to stop China from delivering death to America?
So for the first time in a decade, I actually reached out to my counterpart at the Ministry of Public Security. No one at the FBI had done so, to engage.
Ministry of Security, where's that?
In mainland China.
In mainland China.
To engage in a conversation to say, hey, can we have a certain number of these precursor chemicals listed in China so that they become illegal and illegal to trade. We're also working with our counterparts in places like India and Guatemala because the transshipment routes of the precursors, the Mexican drug cartels have gotten creative, and instead of coming directly to America are going into these countries. And we've had massive success in India and Guatemala and in those governments' great partnerships in shutting down the ability to ship the precursors into those countries, which are ultimately destined to America.
So those people that are working with security agencies have been working with you, is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
So I want to turn to a couple cases that are at the University of Michigan, where Chinese nationals, on behalf of the Chinese government, smuggled in illicit biological materials, stuff that can harm our agricultural industry. What actions are you taking as we see repeated stories of Chinese nationals doing this in the United States?
So just that, sir, in this calendar year alone, as I was mentioning, our counterintelligence operations in cases brought against the Chinese are up by, I think, something like 40%. And specifically, the cases in Michigan show two threat streams, not just against our agricultural industry, which is a threat to national security, but they were also bringing in chemical agents and mushrooms. I'm not the exact expert, that would have ultimately hurt our population. We arrested and charged all of those individuals, and we are aggressively going after them in every single state because they weren't doing it in Michigan alone.
Should research universities across the United States be doing a thorough job of vetting Chinese nationals that are coming to their universities?
They should.
Turning to spying in America, we heard the stories about Senator Dianne Feinstein's driver, who was a Chinese spy. We're familiar with Linda Sun, who worked in Governor Hochul's office, Christine Fang in California. What are you doing to find these people who are Chinese spies that are trying to burrow themselves into the politics of America? Because we know it's happening, right?
Yes, it is. And what our counterintelligence unit is doing is aggressively seeking the intelligence into where these individuals are working. Then we are utilizing our operational authorities to go in and investigate them either through our human source networks and collecting information through lawful process, online, search warrants, and data so that we can bring proper arrest charges and publicize to the world what they're doing here. And just because we've caught a few doesn't mean we've caught everybody. We've got a lot more to go.
I get one more quick question in. The FBI arrested a judge in Wisconsin, Hannah Dugan, for interfering with a federal law enforcement operation. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And is a judge above the law here in the United States of America?
Well, no one is, and that case is ongoing, but as you stated in these allegations that there was interference in a federal, lawfully executed federal law enforcement priority that was interfered with.
I yield back, Mr.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Patel, I believe you had primary importance in starting Operation Viper in Memphis. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And Operation Viper brought in the FBI, DEA, the ATF to help Memphis police in policing the city.
That'll be phase 2, sir. Phase 1 was FBI and local law enforcement in Memphis for the last few months.
Okay. You did a good job, and the police director and the mayor have told me that was been helpful. The FBI working with the police, and the FBI are trained in law enforcement. They know Miranda rights, they know how to do policing, and they do a good job working with the police. Do you think that the National Guard is necessary to do the work that the FBI is doing now?
Thank you. I do think it's necessary to finish it. What we've done is 500 arrests in Memphis and 110 federal indictments. But what we need to do is we've only secured a piece of where the criminal conduct is occurring in Memphis, and we can't work inside perimeters that are not established and safe, and we don't have the manpower to give us the space to fully go into the areas where the criminal activity remains.
Well, are you suggesting that the National Guard is going to go into the more heavily crime area?
They're going to establish, like they did in Washington, D.C., perimeters where local law enforcement and the FBI, DEA, ATF, and U.S. Marshals can go into. We can't be going into all these areas knowing that they're extremely volatile and jeopardizing the safety of our agents.
Did the National Guard do anything in Washington to help the FBI stay safe from these dangerous elements?
They established perimeters.
Established perimeter, and the criminals knew about it, so they...
It was a visible force, sir, so they kind of saw it.
Well, what you did, I commend you for what you did, and I think the FBI coming in, we have a crime problem in Memphis. The FBI has helped, DEA will help, and the ATF will help. I don't think the National Guard is going to help, and what I've seen, they're not trained in law enforcement, are they?
No, sir.
And so that could be a problem. Who will direct the National Guard in Memphis? Will it be, will they have control over your agents?
No, sir, they won't.
Who will have control over your agents? You?
Well, the SAC and then ultimately the chain of command up to Washington, D.C. will control the FBI, but there's a task force that was put together that is going to be led by an interagency. The heads of U.S. Marshals, DEA, and FBI will be working together with DHS collectively on this.
Have you visited Memphis before?
Yes, sir, I have.
So you know how good a city it is.
I love Memphis.
A lot of us do. And Memphis is a great city, great history, civil rights museum. Might say something about slavery, but that was the history. It needs to be taught. Blues.
You want harder erections faster? Listen up for a second. Old school ED pills such as Viagra can take up to an hour to work. Thankfully, Rose Sparks can get you hard in a minute. They dissolve right underneath your tongue to enter your bloodstream directly.
We just got some new information about Lumi. We just learned that Lumi not only has amazing odor control, but it also is clinically proven to visibly even skin tone. So what that means is if you have like dark spots in your armpits, especially like where skin rubs on skin, Lumi is now clinically proven to even them. It'll restore the natural skin tone. It also, because it's powered by mandelic acid, which is a really gentle exfoliant, it's an AHA, it will also help prevent ingrown hairs. And then customers say it just helps them shave better, like they feel like they can get a closer shave. So we're just saying, let's give our pits a glow for the summer. Let's give those beautiful armpits a chance to show themselves off. So not only will it be a great deodorant, but it's also going to be great for your pits.
Beale Street.
Beale Street, right, barbecue. And people should come. It's not a troubled city. We've got some crime, but it's not a troubled city. We're not troubled, and we love our city. We hope that the National Guard doesn't come in and cause people to have questions about Memphis, because it's a city they should visit. Let me ask you this about, you said that the homicide rates are coming down to an all-time low?
In modern recorded U.S. history, yes, sir.
When does modern recorded history start?
I think the FBI, and I'll get back to you on this, has stats on that going back about 30 years, sir.
Okay, I was thinking back to Ozzie and Harriet, and I didn't think you could beat Ozzie and Harriet's time. Secondly, you mentioned the Epstein case. Did any of the women that were victims, they came up here and had a press conference and all, did any of them contact your office and ask to give information?
To my knowledge, no, sir.
If they did, let me ask you first, is there a statute of limitations on sex crimes like that, with sex with a minor, rape?
The DOJ is the expert, but I do not believe there's a statute on that, limitations on that.
So if there's not a statute of limitations, should you not be interviewing those people who know who raped them and the names and the places and give you that information? That seems like that's a treasure trove of information, and it's a serious, serious, serious number of crimes.
Sir, I couldn't agree with you more. We've been very public about asking individuals to come forward with new information, and we would run out every single lead on that.
Well, I'm sure the women will come forward, especially today, to ensure that they will get an opportunity, because that seems like something we ought to do. You Mr. Driscoll, what was his reputation?
I can't comment on Mr. Driscoll's matter. It's an ongoing litigation.
Yeah, but his reputation you could tell us about.
I can't tell you about his reputation. His work has been laid out in that lawsuit.
How many of the FBI agents who worked on the non-January 6th case have been fired?
I don't have that number, sir.
Can you give them a ballpark figure?
No, but I can tell you that individuals based on case assignments in the FBI that I have led have not been terminated for case assignments.
Thank you, sir. Come back to Memphis and you work with Kevin Kane in our tourism bureau.
He's great.
And thank you for your work in Memphis.
Gentleman, Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request. Gentleman's recognized. So I've got 4 documents I'd like to introduce into the record. The first one is Jeffrey Epstein's 6 story played out for years in plain sight. And Acosta is quoted in here saying, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." The second document is entitled, "What Epstein's Bodyguard Warned About His CIA Connections." The third document is from Fox Digital. It's titled, "Epstein's Private Calendar Reveals Planned Meetings with Obama Admin Official, CIA Chief." And the last document is Wall Street Journal article that highlights Ehud Barak's 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. He was the former Prime Minister of Israel and head of military intelligence for Israel. It may have held that title when he met Epstein, and then, yes. Objection. The gentleman on hold for a second. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one UC request. This is Judge Engelmayer's decision from August in U.S. versus Epstein, stating the government's 100,000 pages of Epstein files dwarfs the 70-odd pages of Epstein grand jury materials.
Without objection, the gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, "You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself?" You replied, according to the transcript, "There is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else." You also said somewhere in the hearing and here today that the problem is that the case files are constrained by limited search warrants from 2006 to 2007, and that the non-prosecution agreement hamstrung future investigations. Those constraints only apply to Southern District of Florida. They do not apply to Southern District of New York, the location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment, which produced many things, including a series of FD 302 documents. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information. And we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment.
So is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of 2 different United States attorneys' offices from 3 separate administrations who investigated those same materials at one time.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said,
I named one today.
I said, we are not in the practice of the Department of Justice FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I gotta move on here. Were you present when the AG had the White House event when she released the binders to social media influencers?
I was, yes.
So if you're willing to meet with social media influencers who stood to benefit from the sensational and sad stories of these victims, will you meet with the victims as well?
The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information.
Will you personally meet with them?
The FBI and the professionals who are handling the cases will.
Were you instructed that it was important to release the documents to the Oversight Committee on the day of my introduction of the discharge petition to release these files?
I don't know what day that was, so no.
Well, they were released that day, and there were victims' names who weren't redacted because they were in such a rush, and the victims are not happy about that. Have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? And if you wanted to see it, would they show it to you?
Well, I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file. And I've reviewed everything that the interagency, not I, the FBI, that was provided to us.
Would you be willing to look at the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein?
If there is such a file, and if it has not already been turned over to the FBI will look at any new investigative leads.
Have you made any progress on the pipe bomb investigation January 6th? And have you made any progress on the motive of the Las Vegas shooter?
As to the first, it's an ongoing investigation, and we have made progress. As to the second, sir, I'll have to get back to you.
All right, thank you. I yield back.
Chairman, I have a unanimous consent. Yields back. Unanimous consent request from the gentleman from New York.
I ask unanimous consent to introduce an unsigned memorandum from July 7th, 2025 that says we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties with the insignia of the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Without objection.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request. It's a article entitled DOJ Deletes Study Showing Domestic Terrorists Are Most Often Right-Wing.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, thank you for being here today. I want to first talk about the significant role that the FBI plays in combating the national security threats posed by our nation's greatest threat, security threat, China and the Chinese Communist Party. It's a fact that China is America's most significant national security threat, isn't that correct?
I would say so, sir.
And you would agree with me that China wants to dominate the United States of America?
I think that's largely their plan.
And they want to dominate the world, both militarily and economically, isn't that correct?
I think so.
And sir, you've been FBI director for the last, 8 months?
7 months, yes.
7 months, and during that time, have you held any stock in any companies founded in China?
I don't believe so.
Well, you do own stock in a company known as Elite Depot, don't you?
Which one, sorry?
Elite Depot. You own stock.
I think that's, I'll have to get back to you. I think it's a law firm and it's a company out of Singapore.
Okay, well, no, the company out of Singapore, which is owned by Elite Depot, is the Shein Company, which was founded in China, correct?
That company operates out of Taiwan.
Well, they changed their headquarters from China back in 2022 to Singapore for tax purposes, but it's owned by a Chinese billionaire. I think his name is Charlie Zhu, and you own stock in the company that owns Shein.
Which I disclosed during my confirmation process.
You certainly did. And now, do you still hold that stock in that Chinese company?
Pursuant to the Department of Justice, who reviewed my material that was submitted during my confirmation process, I was able to hold certain stocks, and they made
Do
a
you
decision.
still hold the stocks that you have? You still hold on to these Chinese stocks, these stocks in this Chinese company?
Disagree that it's a Chinese company, but I was in the DOJ, when you're appointed, makes a call on what you can and can't
Well,
possess.
now, let me ask you this. Chinese companies steal trademarks. They produce counterfeit products and sell them over the internet on platforms such as Shein. They steal intellectual property. They steal data from American companies. And to me, it seems inconsistent with your role as FBI director that you would own stock in a company that is based in a country that is the nation's premier national security threat. It's like you are putting your own financial security over the security of the nation.
I disagree with that characterization.
Well, I think the American people look at it like it's a classic situation of the fox guarding the hen house. If the FBI is charged with investigating espionage, economic espionage by companies controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, and you are the director of the FBI, you've got a conflict of interest.
Sir, I would just show if there's any.
What drew me to DaVita and dialysis was really just helping people in an outpatient setting. I think as a social worker, we can provide a lot of resources and help them with community needs. Seeing them long-term, knowing that this is life-sustaining, I thought this would be a really good fit, and I've come to really love it.
Intimation that
Why are you holding on to this stock?
It wasn't a decision.
And it's valued at up to $5 million as of when you last reported, correct? $5 million in stock?
No, I don't follow it.
You don't follow it, but you're still making money off of it.
I don't have any money off of anything.
Well,
What I have done,
Trump's trade policies directly impact the value of that Chinese stock. Won't you agree with that?
which trade policy? I'm not a trade expert.
Okay, all right.
But I want to tell you
You're
this.
crazy on me today. Let me ask you this question. Why are you hiding pedophiles? Why are you shielding pedophiles? Why are you protecting pedophiles?
That is maybe the most offensive thing you could say to me, given the numbers.
Well, you have not released the
Given the
Epstein
numbers
files.
of pedophiles.
You are aware of the
we have
Epstein
arrested-
client list that was published in the 18,000.
The gentleman has expired. Gentleman, yield
Can I
back.
Can you answer the question?
Of course, the gentleman can answer the question.
Since I took over the FBI, there has been a 33% increase.
Sir, all of that started under Christopher
Your
Wray.
time is done. No, it didn't. The witness gets to
All of
answer
that
the
started
question,
under
and then we'll go to our
the
next.
previous FBI director, sir, and you're coming in here trying to take credit for something that a previous director
Gentlemen,
instituted and largely brought to conclusion.
I think it's very clear that the director has numbers
it's
are so
incorrect.
much better than the previous director.
It's
Dr. Patel, if you want to answer the question.
I take no credit. The men and women of the FBI have seen a 33% increase in the number of counterintelligence arrests out of the
And
PRC.
so all of a sudden, with you coming in 7 months ago,
And
Gentlemen's time has
heaven on earth.
expired.
And on the
Sir,
pedophile
the public's not gonna
accusation,
go for that.
we have arrested 1,500 child predators in the last 7 months.
Under investigations
More-
initiated by the prior
Appreciate the
directorship.
director's good work. We really appreciate that the time the gentleman has expired. We now go to the gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank the FBI Director for coming before the committee. I assume the FBI Director, Mr. Patel, I believe you probably agree with me that there is a significant organized effort on the left side of the political spectrum to advance criminal organizations being able to put more criminals out on the streets. And that what we've seen this in daily action. Are you familiar with the report that came out this last Monday from the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund?
I'm not familiar with that, sorry.
So this report came out this past Monday, and it said that significant amount of the money flowing out of George Soros and other leftist organizations and funders has been funding DAs and prosecutors, and quote, many of these DAs have never managed an office, prosecuted a criminal case, developed organizational policies. In dozens of America's largest cities and counties, this report finds these progressive district attorneys have outsourced core parts of the American criminal justice system to activists and political donors, taking direction and advice on everything from staffing decisions and communication strategy. Organizations, a complex web of donors going in through these organizations to put radical DAs and prosecutors out there, putting criminals on the street. Does the FBI director agree that this exists and is a problem?
I will accept the factual representation, and if that exists, it is a problem.
The organizations such as TIDES, the Fair and Just Prosecution, Brenner Center for Justice, Partnership for Safety and Justice, the Vera Institute of Justice, the amount of dollars flowing from George Soros through and to these organizations and to the various prosecutors that resulted in increased crime on our streets, including the brutal murder of the Ukrainian refugee in Charlotte. I bring that up because that is one component of this, the problem. In addition, we have an organized effort targeting our border. The NGOs, the nonprofits, and the deep pockets, the United Nations, charitable organizations, and a long list of over 250 organizations that the Center for Immigration Studies put out that lays out a complex web of organizations that were moving people into our country, knowing that they're dangerous, knowing that they're criminal, associated with taxpayer dollars flowing through the United Nations and donor dollars flowing through organizations, including ostensibly religious ones, putting these dangerous individuals on the street that resulted in fentanyl in our communities, that resulted in the death of Jocelyn Nungaray, of hundreds, thousands, even as the director testified, 100,000 people dying from these narcotics every year. All of this in an organized effort, a complete effort by the radical left to use taxpayer dollars and these dollars to put people on our streets. In addition, the extent to which we've seen now with the Southern Poverty Law Center and their hate map targeting, for example, the Family Research Council, where we had a shooting right here in DC over a decade ago, putting Charlie Kirk, putting a target on TPUSA, Antifa, other radical organizations that are very specifically organized in targeting conservatives and ordinary Americans. Well, how about the organized effort to infiltrate our schools and advance a transgender agenda, and advance a radical agenda, perhaps one that we will see exposed further in the individual that actually shot Charlie Kirk? Here's my question. Will you as the director, and are you as the director, pursuing all legal channels to follow the truth wherever it may lead on this organized effort? One. And two, do you agree that Congress should take all action necessary to expose this web of dollars that are flowing to undermine our way of life? You got another minute in my time, then I'd like to hear from you on this topic broadly.
I'll keep it short. Investigatively speaking, we are doing the following. We are following the money. We are following the money in every organization and every person that is violating the federal code. And it doesn't matter what your background or ideology is, we are following the money. We are using legal process to follow that money, issuing subpoenas to follow that money, using grand juries to follow that money. And when we have results to recommend for prosecution to the Department of Justice, we will do that, and we will continue to publicize documents through Congress, yes, when we make these findings.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like unanimous consent to insert the record outsourcing justice by the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund that I alluded to before. I would ask unanimous consent to add a 2024 list provided by the Center for Immigration Studies on these United Nations and other affiliated groups that are responsible, over 250 of them, for moving individuals into our country in a coordinated effort. I would like a unanimous consent to insert a letter that I sent that currently has 33 members of the United.
All right, fam, I think I'm gonna cut the live there. I got some studying to do. I can't really focus on what it is, but I am going to do another live tomorrow, and If you guys want to hear my full commentary, mid this video, I had a little discussion with the viewers and obviously prior to the video starting. But with that said, guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. I just have to get some studying done. I'm in medical school, so there's a lot of studying that I need to do, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I wish you guys a wonderful week. I pray that God would guide and protect every single one of you and watch over all of you. And thank you guys for subscribing. Thank you guys for watching the videos. Thank you guys for interacting. With that said, have a wonderful weekend, guys.